all of them can just reveal videos as usual. I'll do it in the next 5 minutes quickly.
Yeah,
Progress.
Thank you very much. I will now bow to my right and to my left. And having done so, request the delegates to observe a moment of silence for prayer or meditation. Thank you very much. Maybe just a word or two. The first is just to say that we should note that this is the last sitting of the NCOP before we converge again later in the month. And as we all know as well, that the 1st of November 2021 have been announced as the day for local government elections by the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. So all we can say at this stage is, may the best party win.
Honorable Chair.
Yes.
Honorable Chair. Point of order, Chair. Point of order, Chair.
The best is always a very difficult decision to come to.
Point of order, Chair.
I would like to make the following announcements. That delegates who are physically in the chamber must connect to the virtual platform as well as insert their cards to register on the chamber system. That they should switch off the sound on their gadgets and ensure that the microphones on their gadgets are muted and remain muted at all times. They must use the floor microphones, wear face masks at all times, occupy seats marked for that purpose, and that at all times they must maintain social distance, a distance of at least 1.5 meters from each other. Delegates must switch on their videos if they want to speak or address the chairperson. Any delegate who wishes to speak must use the raise your hand function or icon. I'm told that all delegates may participate in the discussion through the chat room. Honorable delegates will now move on to notices of motions, and any delegate who wishes to give a notice of motion should use the raise your hand function or icon. Are there any delegates who wants to do so? Notice of motions. We'll start with Ryder. Go to Mpumalanga, yourself. Yes. In that order. Ryder. Honorable Ryder. Please proceed.
We ask Mr. Dango to mute and then.
I have.
Thank you. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion that this council debates the Sedibeng Regional Sewer Scheme, which is still to be completed after years.
Notice that the House debate mental health in South Africa notes that the COVID-19 pandemic and high level of poverty, unemployment, and gender-based violence continue to drive the disconcerting high levels of depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and job stresses in South Africa. I so move.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Malika. Honorable Labuskachne.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion that this Council debates the long-standing impact of COVID-19 and the state of disaster regulations with specific reference to the social and mental health of our society. I so move.
Thank you very much. There was one other person this side.
The debate on the mental health.
Yeah. Yes.
Chairperson, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I move a motion for debate to determine how it's possible that a party that wants to run the country cannot even submit their names to the IEC. I so move.
Like it's a highway.
We are going to win this election, Chairperson. We are going to win as the EFF Chairperson. We are not going to win this time.
EFF, yeah?
Yes.
Is it Mabatu or? Yeah. Honorable member from of the EFF? Thank you very much. We'll now move on to motions without notice.
Honorable Chair.
Chairperson.
Honorable Chair.
Honorable Chairperson.
Yes, yes.
Honorable Chair.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. On behalf of the
Chairperson.
Yes.
Chairperson, please.
Chief Whip?
Honorable Chair, of a point of order.
No. You want?
Point of order, Chair.
No. No, that's just that you come.
Chair, on a point of order.
Please proceed, Honorable Labuschagne.
On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that this council congratulates the Western Cape Provincial Parliament with a consistent pattern of good audit outcomes as reported by the Auditor General, notes that the Western Cape continued to deliver the best results with 75% clean audits, which is a reflection upon the institutionalized controls in the financial statements preparation processes. Further recognizes the monthly procurement disclosures report of the Western Cape, which affirms the Provincial Treasury's commitment to transparency and clean government. Further, to congratulate the Western Cape government for the focus put on COVID-19 related expenditure across departments and public entities in the 2021 financial year in their 14th edition of the Procurement Disclosure Report. Further notes that procurement expenditure includes price per unit and supplier details and can be viewed via the National Treasury COVID-19 dashboard, and calls on all other provinces to implement this healthy financial practice to combat crime and corruption in government. I so move.
Honorable
Thank
Chair,
you
on
very
a point
much.
of order.
Is there any objection?
Point of order, Chair.
No, there being no
Point
objection.
of order, Chair. Honorable Chair.
No objection. The motion, therefore, will not be proceeded with and will become a notice of a
Honorable
motion.
Chair, on a point of order.
Yes, Detroit.
Honorable Chair, can you please recognize the members on the virtual platform for notice of motion and motion without notice? You just reacted to the members in the House. We also have a notice of motion on the virtual platform that I want you to deliver, please.
No, we'll do so, Detroit, and your name is noted.
I'm on without.
Can I deliver both, Chair, or how do you suggest we proceed? Because you
We'll
moved to
come-
notices without motion.
Your name is Chief Whip.
Chairperson, I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that the House knows the announcement that was made by Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, that the 1st November will be the new date for the 2021 local government elections. 2, notes that the 2021 local government election marked the 21st anniversary since the establishment of democratic local government system in our country, which remains the fundamental pillar of our democratic ideals of our democracy as the sphere that is closest to our people and the coal face of our service delivery. Further notes that the decision to proclaim 1st November as a date for 2021 local government elections comes after the Constitutional Court last week ordered the Electoral Commission of South Africa to hold the local government elections on any day between October 27 and November 1st this year, and takes this opportunity to convey its well wishes to all political parties that are participating in the 2021 local government elections, and make a clarion call to all the citizens of our country to take part in these very important elections, whilst also exercising greater caution and observe all protocols that are put in place to minimize the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. I so move.
Thank you very much, Chief Whip. Any objection? None. There being no objection, the motion is therefore agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Boshoff.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that this Council notes with joy the performance of our participants at the 2020 Tokyo Paralympics. Also notes that a total of 7 medals were won, 4 of which were gold, 1 silver, and 2 were bronze. Further notes that Anrune Veyes, Peter de Priya, and Ntando Mhlangu captured gold for our country, with Ntando Mhlangu winning 2 gold medals. Recognizes that Ntando Mhlangu set a new world record with his jump of 7.17 meters, edging out German Leon Schaffer's distance of 7.12 meters. Again notes that Anrune Veyes won her 400-meter race in a time of 56.05 seconds, cruising ahead of Venezuela's Vera Andrade in a time of 57.32 seconds. Further notes that Luzon Kutsia won a silver medal in the 1,500-meter event and also took 3rd place in the women's marathon event. Again notes that Cheryl James won a bronze medal in the 400-meter women's event and requests that this House send a letter to the above participants congratulating them on their achievements and flying the South African flag high. I so move. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any objection? Any objection? None. So the motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. The next person is Du Toit. Honorable Du Toit.
Thank you, Chair. I just want, for clarity's sake, can I deliver both the motion without notice and the notice of motion? Because the platform, virtual platform, did not form part of the first event.
What is this saying? Honorable Du Toit, if you can bear with us, you will get an opportunity next time. We can't really go back.
Honorable Chair,
with due respect, yeah.
With due respect, my hand was up. You didn't recognize me.
Thank you very much.
In the interest of the country.
No, thank you very much. I'm sure you'll see the point.
Point of
Chair,
order,
motion
Chair.
without notice. May I proceed?
The next person is Honorable Ocampo.
Honorable Choi, may I proceed? You
No,
recognize
you
me.
can't. No, we can't. Next time.
On a point of order, Chair, why am I recognized and not given an opportunity?
Please, order. Honorable Ocampo.
On a point of order, Chair.
What's the point of order?
Honorable Chair, you recognized me, but you didn't give me an opportunity to deliver either one of my 2 motions. What is the reason for that? May I proceed with one of the 2 motions, please? And if yes, please indicate which one, motion without notice or a notice of motion.
No, then we can proceed.
With which one do you want?
Motion without notice, please proceed.
I hereby move without notice on behalf of the Freedom Front Plus that this House notes that Chris and Hester Barnard from Koster in the Northwest Province was brutally attacked and tortured last night. Notes that the protection of individual and rural areas is of the utmost importance and that visible policing be intensified and perpetrators be arrested and prosecuted. Further notes that specialized units be activated and bolstered to deal with these brutal violent crimes as a matter of urgency, and that the brutal attacks and high crime rate, specifically violent crime, be debated in this House as soon as possible. I so move.
Any objection? None. And therefore the motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Let's then move on to Honorable Ocampo.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes with sorrow the damage caused by the recent veld fires in the areas of Kuruman, Katu, Bosmasburg, Luatla, and Danielskuil as well as other affected areas in the northeastern parts of the Northern Cape, where more than approximately 250,000 hectares of grazing have been destroyed during the last month. That this House hereby express our gratitude towards the various public as well as civilian firefighting organizations, as well as to the large number of individual farmers and private companies who unselfishly made their personal firefighting equipment and vehicles available in order to try to contain the spread of these horrific fires. Furthermore, express our utmost gratitude towards each individual who did not think twice to put their own lives at risk in order to assist in the fighting of these fires. Furthermore, that this House notes and acknowledges the fact that due to these fires and the amount of grazing that was destroyed, there now is an urgent need for fodder to be made available to those farmers who lost grazing during these fires. That this House hereby requests the Premier of the Northern Cape to declare the areas affected by these fires as a disaster area. And lastly, that the MEC of Kokta and or the Premier of the Northern Cape immediately approve the provision of fodder from the fodder banks in the Northern Cape to the affected farmers, as well as to make additional funding available in order to assist these farmers, big and small, to obtain sufficient fodder for their animals. I so move.
Thank you very much. Any objection? None. So the motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Let's go to those who are on the other platforms. AC De Bruin. Honorable De Bruin.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On behalf of the Freedom Front Plus, I move that this House notes the devastation that veld fires caused over the past weekend that destroyed tens of thousands of hectares of agricultural land, as well as chalets at the Aldam Resort in Ventersburg. And also that this House notes that the Mama Abane fire station was inaugurated in 2015 by the Machabeng local municipality. The exact value of the project remains a mystery, but sources suggest that the cost of the fire station could amount to 14 million rand. It should be noted with extreme concern that since its completion...
Honorable De Bruin, if I can just ask you to speak a bit slower and speak to the mic. You are not audible.
Am I audible now?
We can't hear what you are saying. Please try again.
Am I audible now, Chair?
Please proceed. Honorable De Bruin.
I will start from the beginning then. On behalf of the Freedom Front Plus, I move that this House notes the devastation that veld fires caused over the past weekend that destroyed tens of thousands of hectares of agricultural land, as well as chalets at the Aldam Resort near Ventersburg. Also that this House notes that the Mama Abane fire station was inaugurated in 2015 by the Machabeng local municipality. The exact value of the project remains a mystery, but sources suggest that the cost of the fire station to amount to 14 million rand. It should be noted with extreme concern that since its completion, the Mama Abane station has not been utilized for its intended purposes, with neither human or technical resources nor any number of firefighting activities being present in yet another failed ANC project reveals only vandalization and decay. It should be considered that yet another white elephant in the Free State under the ANC adds no value to the community. In this regard, it should also be considered that if the station has been operational, the devastation of the Ventersburg fires could have been limited. The fire station could have played a vital role in efforts to the fires mentioned that was in need by the community. But the delays and the outright inaction and incompetence of the municipality under the ANC to make it operational is affecting the local communities. This House should resolve that all the unfinished ANC projects will one day be mausoleums of the ANC's heritage from wasteful expenditure. The communities of the Free State can no longer suffer due to unused and incomplete project by the ANC. I so move.
Okay.
No, thank you very much. Hopefully, we'll solve this problem of people not being that audible. But there we
Objection to that motion, Chair.
Any objection to the motion?
Objection.
There's objection, and therefore the motion may not be proceeded with. and become a notice of a motion. The next person is Honorable Gillian. Honorable Gillian? Yes.
Honorable Chairperson, mine was notice of motion, and I was not recognized at that time. Thank you.
I can come in.
Yeah, Honorable Gillian, I'm sorry, we can't really go back. I've already made a ruling in this regard. The next person is Honorable Lutuli.
Thank you, Chairperson. Can I please have my video off with your permission?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. I rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters that the council note that KwaZulu-Natal has received disruptive overnight rains coupled with thunderstorms which have led in flooding and in turn caused the collapse of roads and houses in the area. Further notes that poor planning, lack of maintenance of roads and infrastructure add to the situation in KwaZulu-Natal as storms continue to cause havoc on poorly maintained infrastructure. Acknowledge that poorly managed and deficient municipalities and massive underspending on repairs and maintenance contributes to devastation that occurs during bad weather conditions brought on by climate change. Recognize that lack of consequence which befalls our management due to failure to deliver basic service at provincial and municipal level also contributes to devastation which follows conditions such as these. On behalf of the economic freedom fighters, we call on provincial government to ensure adequate provisions of service delivery in the province. I so move. Thank you, Chairperson.
Any objection? Any objection? Objection. The motions will therefore not be proceeded with and become a notice of a motion. Honorable Ndongeni.
Chairperson, on a point of order.
Yeah, what's a point of order?
Chairperson, what government rises on a point of order when a motion in the House is being presented to actually help desperate people in a certain province? What type of a political party are you? What type of people are you?
But that's not the point of order. That's not the point of order.
They are out of order.
We will therefore proceed to Honorable Ndongeni.
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that the House note with profound sadness and grief the brutal murder of Sergeant Faisal Adams, who was part of the team of police officers from the South African Police Service who are stationed in Parliament. Further notes that the Sergeant Faisal Adams was brutally murdered on Tuesday, 7 September afternoon in Goodwood, here in Cape Town, when he was visiting his cousin, and acknowledge the tireless service and contribution made by Sergeant Faisal Adams in the service to the Parliament and the South African Police Service. And it takes this opportunity to convey its heartfelt condolences to the family of Sergeant Faisal Adams and the calls on the police to ensure that murderers of Sergeant Faisal Adams are brought to book to face the full might of the law. I so move. Thanks, Chairperson.
Any objection? None. Therefore, the motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Matebula.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'd like to apologize for not switching off my camera. I was doing oversight in Giande by Center, where it was only assisting 10 people for a day. So my apologies, Chair. I'm not in a very good space to switch on my camera. I rise on behalf of the EFF that the council knows that Giyani municipality in Mopani district in Limpopo is experiencing a water shortage 55 villages currently are without running water. Further notes that Limpopo is a water-scarce province with water levels on downward spiral, coupled with a decline in water shortages. Acknowledge that the 3 billion that was allocated in the Guyana bulk water project, which was meant to provide clean running water to 55 villages, has collapsed in 2018 after allegation of corruption surfaced. We therefore call on the government to bring all those responsible for the failure to the Guyana bulk water project to account. I so move.
Any objection? None. The motion is therefore agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Mahlangu.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. My apologies. I'll speak without the camera on due to poor network. With your permission, Chairperson.
Please proceed.
Honorable Chair, I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that the House notes with profound sadness and concern that the police have launched a manhunt for a suspect after 5 people were shot in Tavern over the weekend in Mpumalanga. Further notes that 2 of the people died after the shooting in Kudusport near Falbank in the Nkangala district after a scuffle broke out at a tavern, resulting in the violent death of the 5 deceased people. Takes this opportunity to condemn this incident and utmost hideous disregard of human life shown by the perpetrators of this heinous crime, and conveys our heartfelt condolences to the families of the deceased and call on the police to leave no stone unturned to make sure that the perpetrator is repulsive crime are brought to book. I so move. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Any objection? There being no objection, the motion is therefore agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Bartlett, I'm told there are 2 Bartletts. Let's start with the one in the House.
Good afternoon. Honorable Chairperson, I will move a motion without notice. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that the House, 1, note that a 50-year-old man from the Mpumalanga province was sentenced to life imprisonment for stabbing his ex-lover to death in the presence of a new boyfriend in 2020. 2, further note that the Mpumalanga High Court sitting in Graskop sentenced Shorens Delsengala on Monday after he pleaded guilty to murder and robbery of aggravating circumstances. 3, also notes that Judge Joanna Mwenja sentenced Ngala to life imprisonment for murder and 15 years imprisonment for robbery with aggravating circumstances. And then 4, Honorable Chairperson, therefore congratulate the NPA and the police for making sure that this color's murderer has been given an appropriate sentence. I so move, Honorable Chairperson. I thank you.
Any objection? None. The motion is therefore agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. I was trying to inquire if there's another Bartlett. I'm told this is the only Bartlett. So we'll proceed to Honorable Lucas.
Can I be assisted? Thank you very much. Honorable Chairperson, I'm raising on a motion without notice for the House to take note that of the tragic happening yesterday, that the newly renovated hospital in Christiana burned down after there was an electrical explosion that took place. For us, is from Likwa-Temana area, as my constituency, the reason why I'm putting the motion here, it is so sad because it's the only health center that is in that area, in that specific constituency area of Bloemhof and Christiana. And that is why I want the House to take note and for those that will be able to assist us to take note from the motion that we are putting here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any objection? None. The motion is therefore agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. The next person to speak is Honorable Njad.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, motion without notice. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that the House notes with profound sadness that 5 people were killed and 4 others injured in an accident involving farm workers on the R321 road between Villiersdorp and Grabouw on Tuesday. Further notes that 2 farm workers and 3 people traveling in a SUV were killed after the vehicle apparently collided with a truck transporting 57 farm workers. Also notes that the crash happened after the province recorded 21 fatalities in the week between 30 August and 5th September 2021. And therefore send our heartfelt condolences to the families of the deceased and wish a speedy recovery to the injured. I so moved, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much. An objection? None. The motion is therefore agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Thank you very much. We will now, yes, Honorable Ryder.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that this Council notes the tragic death of Komanini Mava, a 6-year-old from the Vaal. Further notes that this young child was playing near his home in Orange Farm in the Johannesburg municipality when he fell down an open manhole and into the sewer below. Notes that Komanini's body was found yesterday in Everton after extensive searching. Notes that the Democratic Alliance and the community have been calling for the sewer system in this area to be properly repaired for years, including numerous calls on the Johannesburg and Mfuleni municipalities to ensure that manholes are covered. Notes that despite the efforts of the National Department of Water and Sanitation, the Deputy President and the President himself, the Vaal sewage situation shows no signs of improvement. Notes that this tragic and horrible death could have and should have been avoided. That this House agrees to continue to place pressure on all spheres of government to ensure that the people of the Vaal region are able to live in a safe and healthy environment. And I further move, Chair, that this House sends its condolences to the family of young Komanini. I so move.
Thank you very much. Any objection? None. The motion is therefore agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Thank you very much, delegates and fellow members. We will now proceed to the subject for discussion. But before we do that, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome the Minister of Police, the premiers who may be on the platform, MECs, and other special delegates, as well as the SALGA representatives to the House. So welcome. Honorable delegates, we shall now proceed to the subject for discussion as printed on the order paper, debate on the devolution of the South African Police Service. I now call upon Honorable Winde, Premier of the Western Cape, to open the debate.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, members of this House, Minister,
Vicky Cele, who's I see on the speakers list, and the MECs that are joining us in this debate, honourable members of this House, special guests. It is an honour and a privilege for me to be able to speak in this debate, to be able to bring, I think, to this august House a really serious subject for discussion. The DA in the Western Cape and the Western Cape government has consistently espoused the principle of federalism and called for the devolution of power to provinces. Not only because this is the best form of governance in principle, but also because it brings government closer to the people. It promotes better accountability, specifically all the way down to local level. In the context of South Africa today, devolution of power will ensure that we do not become a failed state. While we have long talked about the importance of devolution in South Africa, the time has come for us to take action and implement it now. Failure to do so, Chairperson, will have grave consequences. I say to members of this House, I recommend this book, Fixing Failed States. I say to us in this House that while in South Africa we might not now be a failed state, we are moving towards a failed state. And we need to arrest that now. We need to change that now. That is why the Western Cape stands ready to take up devolved responsibilities so that we can get the job done. Chairperson, I've just said that while we are not a failed state, we are failing. And I don't want to spend too much time making politics here today. I want to bring this very, very serious discussion to this House because I want to say, Chairperson, this House represents all of our provinces in South Africa, and this House has the power to bring about change, to push back on budgets, to really make a change in the best interests of the citizens of our province. You know, while talking about federal power, I'm going to use, first of all, before I talk about the South African Police Services, I'm going to talk about another competency. I'm going to talk about PRASA and rail in our municipalities. And specifically in this very city where we find ourselves at this, the seat of Parliament, the seat of this National Council of Provinces, if you live anywhere around the central line, Mr. Chair, you have not got a very good story to tell. That competency by PRASA has failed the citizens of our country. It has failed the citizens of our province, and it has failed the citizens of this city of Cape Town. And who are those citizens? They are the poorest of the poor. They are the ones that actually need government to be there for them. How do they get to school, to a hospital, to a job? That central line is an absolute failure. I'm not sure when any of these standing committees have been there last to go and have a look at what it looks like in the central line or on the central line. There are now people living, they're using the railway lines as the foundations for their homes. Those trains have not got a chance of even running, even if there was a will to fix it. But that's why we are saying these vulnerable people deserve much better. And I'm saying to this House should be making statements on that. This House should be calling for a change in management because it has failed the citizens of Langa. It's failed the citizens of Mitchell's Plain. It has failed the citizens of Khayelitsha.
Honorable Chair, on a point of order.
Honorable Memang, on what point are you rising?
I'm rising on a point of order in terms of Rule 36, Honorable Chair. The matters around PRASA, around transport, is not the subject matter on the table. So I'm afraid that the Honorable Speaker on the podium is not relevant to the topic that the Chair has outlined, that it is the subject matter of today's debate. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
There's not really a point of order. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. I hope I'm not losing time because of these frivolous points of order. But the object was to show that it's a failed state and it affects the citizens of our various provinces. And this doesn't only happen in the Western Cape, this happens in other provinces too. And we represent those very citizens, and specifically the poorest of the poor. We all represent them, every single one of us in our various different political parties. And we need to stand up for them. And so, Speaker, so Chair, I need to move on to talking about where we really have failed our citizens, and that is in keeping them safe. Policing. Are our citizens safe in South Africa? They are not. In the Standing Committee at the National Assembly, the Commissioner of Police says we can no longer keep our citizens safe. When that is said, one must get really, really worried. And I'm coming to this House, I'm coming to this debate to say, I believe there's a solution. And I really want us to take this very, very seriously, Chairperson. Policing is not working at the moment with a centralization under a single control coming out of Tshwane, coming out of Pretoria. We are not managing it properly. We need to change. You know, they say if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and you're not finding change, that's just a sign of madness. And if our citizens are not getting safer and we are doing the same thing over and over again, we need to make a change. And we, I say we, every single one of us, we as members of legislatures, of parliament, of the NCOP, we owe it to those citizens to bring about that change, to push for that change. And, you know, Chairperson, right here today, that is why this debate is of utmost importance. I know you said that we are going to be breaking now because there's an election coming up. But please do not use that break while we're fighting an election and not in our committees and not in sitting in this House to waste a moment of not thinking about how we are going to change the way that we make our citizens safer in our province. What I'm saying here, I'm speaking on behalf of those people in Mitchell's Plain, in Khayelitsha. These are the people who suffer the brunt, and we cannot allow this to happen. At the moment, what is happening when the announcement comes, when Minister Becky Clele, who's going to be speaking after me, says, I'm very sorry, we got less budget to fight crime in this country. Have we stood up in this House, stood together in this House and said, we do not accept that? We need more budget for policing. We need to cut elsewhere. Let's make sure we make people safe in our province. It is critical. Chairperson, that is why the Western Cape stands ready to take up these devolved responsibilities so that we can get the job done. And I'm pretty certain that there are other MECs and premiers in other provinces that are saying devolve power to them too. Let us work together in a different way in order to get this job done. We have put together a safety plan in this province in the meantime, while we are waiting. But Chairperson, before I get to that safety plan and talking about that safety plan, I want to give you just an idea of how a devolved system of policing could work. Let's think about COVID-19 and the response of COVID-19, and I can only talk about my province, but how we responded to make sure we're keeping our citizens safe, make sure we're keeping them healthy, making sure we're protecting them and protecting our healthcare system so we don't end up in hospital, and saving as many lives as possible. We held that responsibility here as a province, but we work with national. I'm not saying that we want to be the sole. I'm saying we need to work with national government, provincial government, and local government together in finding a solution. But the way the health system works is we take that responsibility as a province because we are closer to the people. We work with our municipalities because they are even closer to the people. And we work with them in the best interest of making sure we get through this pandemic as safely as possible. Why can we not do exactly the same thing with policing? Why can we not devolve certain management principles and power around policing down to provincial level and to local government level? So let me talk about the safety plan. And of course, also on this speakers list, MEC Fritz, Minister Fritz in our province will also be talking about it, as of course it's his responsibility. He owns this safety plan, or a compartment of it. Because the safety plan is not only about boots and policing, the safety plan is also about getting to the why. Violence prevention. How are we making it safer? We must prevent violence from happening. We've got to get into those young boys before they get into the gangs and make sure we've got systems and mechanisms to identify them and get them into Project Chrysalis, or get them into programs that get them back on track so that they can lead a positive role in society into the future. We're identifying those first 1,000 days of a child's life. We're using this through data and science and measuring, and then we take that data, we understand where those hotspots are, and we deploy, whether it's a social worker, whether it's an intervention of violence prevention through our health system, or whether it is boots on the ground. Because part of our safety plan is we've started to put boots on the ground. We've identified which are the 10 hotspot, murder capital hotspots in the city of Cape Town. They all are at the moment. Luckily, not other municipalities, but wherever there's a hotspot, we identify it, we use the data management systems, and then we deploy. Not alone, we deploy with South African Police Services. And already we've seen, if I look back in 2016-17 in Bishop Lavis, a 24% decrease in murders. In 2021, a further 49% decrease in murders, 2018 to 2021. This cannot be attributed to only the LEAP operations, but it is how we work together in a different way, trying to find a better solution. Because why are we doing it? Our citizens need to be safer. They are not safe at the moment. If you live in one of those 10 hotspot areas, if you live in Philippi right now, you live in fear. If you live in Bishop Lavis, you live in fear. Gangs, murders, rape. You cannot believe it, the GBV that happens. We speak about GBV all the time. How are we measuring it? And how are we intervening to bring about change? We need to do something different. We cannot carry on doing exactly the same thing year after year and expect it to just get safer. It is not going to get safer. So, Chair, I'm here not to make politics. I am here in this very house to say to the National Council of Provinces, to say, let's apply our minds. Let's talk also to our colleagues at the National Assembly. Let's use the power that we are given by the voters in this very house to talk about those budgets, but also to talk about how the systems work. Let's change that system. It is not working at the moment. Let's devolve the power. Let's change it in a way that makes it safe. We will continue with our safety plan. We will continue measuring and monitoring and trying to work as best as we can with all spheres of government, pulling it together. We've already deployed 800 what we call LEAP officers alongside the city of Cape Town. And the interesting thing is that when I go on a walkabout with those LEAP officers and I meet the station commanders from the South African Police Services, those station commanders say to me, if they don't come from one of the hotspots where they've got allocation of officers, they say to me, we are so jealous of those places because we want those extra resources. Minister, you know that the resource deployment in this province in 2019, 2018 actually, we were sitting at over 20,000 officers deployed. Here we are in 2021, 19,000 officers deployed, just over. We have less officers today than we had then. We've got more people and higher crime levels. This cannot be the case. We have to do something differently. We have to challenge this, take on this big challenge differently. We've got to think about it. And that's the pleading that I'm making here today. I've got a solution, Minister. I know what I'm asking for is actually a change in the Constitution, and I know that takes long, and it's a long process. I don't say that we must stop. Let's start that process. But in the meantime, I've got a challenge. Why don't we try it? Why don't we try something a little bit different? Minister Becky Cleller, I'm challenging you to say, why don't we work together in a different way? Why don't you, number one, give us in the province a bit more management and decision-making powers? Why don't you let us chair and run the Prof Jock? I promise you I will do it alongside SAPS, but we will take that responsibility. We will run the provincial Jock. I'll run it alongside General Patekile. I want to say to you, thank you very much to General Patekile. We work very well together, but give me the power alongside him to do even more when it comes to those decision-making. Give us the decision-making around how the budgets for the Western Cape are going to be managed, and give us the decision-making powers on how deployment takes place, so that we can decide how many police officers we deploy to Philippi. We can decide how many police officers we deploy to those hotspot stations, and we'll do that alongside our own deployment of LEAP officers. We'll do that alongside our municipalities' law enforcement officers. We'll do that alongside the CPFs, and we'll do it alongside the neighborhood watchers, the volunteers from citizens. We'll do all of that together. Why don't you give us the opportunity to try that as a lead up to changing our system of management of police in our country? Minister, I think if we tried that, and I can assure you that we will do it together with all three spheres of government. And Minister, I will also say to you that if it succeeds—
As you conclude, Honourable Member.
I will do, Chair. If it succeeds, you can have all of the kudos. I will say it was your idea. If it fails, you can blame me, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will now welcome Honourable Minister Begicele onto the stage. Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Chairperson, the honourable members. I don't work for kudos, I work for the safety of the people. You can keep the kudos. I will continue to work for the safety of the people. Chairperson and honourable members, receive our revolutionary greeting this afternoon as we engage and deliberate on this fundamental subject that talks to our constitutional mandate as South African Police Service to prevent, combat, and investigate crime, to maintain public order, to protect and secure the inhabitants of the Republic and the property, and uphold and enforce the law. Honourable members, I'm deliberately reflecting on what Section 205 of the Constitution instructs us to do, which must be read together with Section 199, Sub 1, which reads, the security services of the Republic consist of single defense force, a single police service, and any intelligence service established in terms of the Constitution. So I would call then to the Premier of Western Cape to enhance and not begin to break down, as the Constitution instructs, that's the security service, how it should work. Quoting the Constitution obligation in commencing this debate is aimed at minimizing the remnants of amnesia that sometimes cripple those who have initiated such a debate. Chairperson, we don't want to drag back to the painful chapters of our history, especially the hidden episodes of the security forces of that time. Hence, we will continue to throw our full weight in defending this hard-earned democracy and the strategic policy direction led by our capable governing party. Today, debate is nothing but hungry politics of power. That is why the reason that you have to deviate from the actual debate, because this debate is not about, is about federalism rather than policing. And please don't mix policing and federalism to undermine the progressive gains of our glorious movement. The topic itself is disguised in a particular color for the benefit of a particular skin color. The DA ideology of thinking Africans in the Western Cape are foreigners is nonsensical and must be rejected, even when it is sugar-coated and hidden in big English words that gets thrown in this august house, honorable members. This government is deeply entrenched in the ideologies of the
forefathers of this democracy. Chairperson, honorable members, the equal opportunities President Mandela spoke about includes equal opportunities to serve and protect the citizens of this country. Therefore, the topic of the devolution of SAPS must be weakened and paralyzed. As a matter of fact, this government is forging ahead in full implementation of the ideals of the single policing service as directed by the Constitution. The raw conduct by certain metros of creating parallel structures of law enforcement aimed at undermining the Constitution cannot be left unchallenged. Chairperson, this point was made by the Premier. I want to respond to it a little bit. The Western Cape government continues to sabotage the efforts of adequately resourcing legitimate structures like the Metro Police, who serve as a force multiplier in the fight against crime. Instead, those resources are pumped to fund parallel structures which adds to no value, and those structures, they have some element of looking at one side. Chairperson, the metros are in the Constitution and the metros are in the legislation working with the South African police. But what is the Western Cape doing? It's not doing what all metros are doing. They are creating the parallel structure called law enforcement outside the metro. The metro police there is almost the half of this law enforcement, because they don't want to fall under the central command that the Constitution is calling. But besides that, many meetings, including Premier, he understands few things that we have requested for the crime to be lessened in that area. One, the environmental design. Chairperson, you go to this Makassar, you go to Dinon, you go to Delft, there is no lighting whatsoever there. There is no streets, there is no street numbers. If you work on the city of Cape Town, all cameras that can help to deal with crime are in affluent areas. All cameras that are in the city center. There is nothing whatsoever on these communities. And it's a shame for me to come and talk about these communities that you do nothing for them whatsoever when it comes to prevention of crime, including the law enforcement. Law enforcement, they go to these areas only for evictions, but as a multiply force, they don't go there. So it's an issue that this call of working together should be done now, rather than wanting this devolution of power that they can't even work with what exists at the present moment. The Western Cape government has put almost $1 billion in security, but guess what? Completely outside the structures that exist. The Premier knows. If he hasn't, he must go and read what is the document that was developed by Advocate Pikoli, how should things done? There should be these resources that are there integrated. To them, the language integration does not exist, because resources must not find their way to the very same areas that stands up here and act as if it's speaking on their behalf. And it's not true that it is so. These parallel structures of the law enforcement, they have eyes. They are deployed in a skewed way. It is not informed and directed by crime trends. Instead, the law enforcement is deployed to affluent areas with less crime, to the detriment of the township that are known to be the biggest contributors of crime in Western Cape. Chairperson, crime syndicates knows no borders, no provincial boundaries. Therefore, our integrated approach in the fight against crime cannot be derailed by such political debates. The notion of the central command and control approach to the policing progressive, and it must be supported, because the syndicates, Chairperson, that's why the member Kenya died investigating the syndicates, not in Western Cape, but in Gauteng, because these syndicates, they have no borders, they don't respect. So if you don't deal with the country as a whole, we will not be able to deal with the question of crime. It is a known fact that many criminal syndicates are recruited across provinces and committing cross-provincial crimes. Police have recently taken down cash-in-transit gangs made up of individuals from various provinces, including Western Cape, even suspects from neighboring countries. Therefore, the integrated and the country approach policing method is to be able to deal with the crime in the whole country. This is not about centralization of policing, Chairperson. It is about central command and control working with all government structures. Central command is about combining resources across government and working in tandem to enable police to chase crime in all corners of the country. Working in silos is simply not option. So they wanted this devolution of power so that they continue to work on their silos as they are working on silos today. Well, Honorable Prima will have to come back as he's coming back and tell why can't you enhance the Metro Police, that is an established structure there, and you create your parallel structure that is only interested in the affluent areas in Western Cape. At this juncture, there is no legislative power that enables province to take over a national competence such as policing. This is because the country is policed in a uniform manner and all South Africans are entitled to policing of an equal standard. Every citizen of this country has a right to access an efficient and professional police service. Such a service cannot be a luxury afforded to a few. We are making a clear call to the Western Cape, put those resources in the central policing. By the way, Honorable Chair, Premier understands that we have poured resources from national office more than any other province. It's the first province that had the Operation Thunder, where we took resources from other provinces to Western Cape. It's the first province to have the anti-gang unit, where we took resources from other provinces to there. That's a province when we trained in the year 2018, when there were 5,000 new trainees, 1,200 alone came from Western Cape. He knows that how we have been working those things. But today, he selectively forgets because he wants to come with this politics of regionalization rather than policy. Chairperson, the implementation of integrated resource plan and sharing of police resources is aimed at advancing a coordinated policing approach across all three spheres of government. This forms part of national crime prevention strategy that seeks, not provincial, national strategy, that seeks to present a model for safety planning through an integration of resources from all stakeholders involving including SAPS as the lead department. This extends to the local and metropolitan municipality, safety departments, registered private security companies, and community safety structures led by community fora. They will have to explain why they have killed the CPFs. CPF are killed in Western Cape and promoting the neighborhood watch, which also is funded in a very skewed way. These are the things that they are killing all standard tested ways of policing in Western Cape. Meanwhile, part of the policy integrated crime prevention strategy includes the National Safer City project, which is piloted in identified cities, including Cape Town, by the way, with the aim of integrating and maximizing on the advanced technology to fight crime more effectively. Other examples include the rural safety strategy and the rural reverse policing concept that has seen, amongst other things, police reservists as a force multiplier in traditionally led communities and to strengthen their capacity and address criminality in rural areas. Policing is on the I-bed view, but Western Cape, they want to use the dog-eye view and at the expense of everybody. Even in Western Cape, even in the metropole, it's not about everybody, it's about certain people in Western Cape. Therefore, Chair, the design of the SAPS ensures that certain units with
As
the
you conclude, Minister, as you conclude.
As I conclude, Chair, the proper coordination and sharing of resources, such units include the Family Violence, Child Protection, Sexual Offences Unit, which is response directed to gender-based violence-related crimes and other crimes committed against women and children. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. We will then move on to Honorable I.M. Sileku.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Deputy Chair. I won't be tempted to respond to Honorable Minister Kaele because this is not politics. This is about saving lives. And I stand here and I'm thinking about two councillors of the ANC that were brutally murdered in this particular province. And I'm also thinking about the EMS staff members that must go to Kailicha to save lives, who are worried about their safety because they might be killed. I'm also thinking about that child that is playing outside, that is hit by a bullet, and the mother is called by a crying because your child is no more. I am also thinking about those young, beautiful ladies that are walking in our streets that might not make it back to their homes. I am also thinking about the student who was buried last Saturday, who had the potential of becoming one of the constitutional judges in this particular country, but who succumbed to that in a very gruesome way. This is never about politics. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, Honorable Premiers, Honorable Members, fellow South Africans, goeiemiddag, good afternoon, meragani. The 13th of July, 2021, will stand as the day when South Africans in every corner of this beautiful country were left breathless by an unprepared of our security cluster, and especially the South African Police Service, in the face of the worst politically driven protest and unprecedented streak of crime since democratization. As a loyal and patriotic South African, I never regarded or treated this as a political opportunity to take a shot in the ANC ability to govern, in this case, the police. The potential consequences of what we witnessed in those hours that extended into days, when our economy was pillated and lives of people were in grave danger, are not matters that any political party should utilize to score political points. But let us not be mistaken. We all had a lingering fear that our community and our neighborhood could be the next to feel the brunt of an unprepared security cluster. In the face of this situation, it is time for us to sacrifice our political sentiments and to reach out to one another and to address the safety of our people in unity. Sadly, what happened in July this year was not the first sign of a police force that became outnumbered and if compared to the extent of crime in South Africa. The signs were there. The signs are there every day. It is there in every city and in every town. It was there in Marikana. It is there every time Minister Begicele announces the crime statistics. It is visible almost every violent service delivery protest where POPs is, at times so badly outnumbered that they simply cannot protect people, nor municipal or economic infrastructure. The signs are there when frustrated people take to the streets. The deteriorating state of the economy is there as a testimony of the effects of lawless action and the limitations of SAPS. Chairperson, the signs are here in the Western Cape, where gang lords for decades now dictate to the people and the police. This is a result of the corruption embedded within SAPS, who have aided these gang lords in their criminal enterprises by selling guns to them. It was there when Pops lost control of a protest in Caledon, where I was a deputy mayor, and we lost 2 men. They died, Honorable Chair. It is there every day and every night in the informal townships where kids are murdered, mutilated, and violated. It is there, it is here where you have one of the highest rates of violence inflicted on women and girls in the world, where our daughters are killed and raped, then plummeted into emotional despair. Every day, criminals throw the gauntlet in the face of the police. They challenge, almost formally, confront the police, and they get away with it. Chairperson, this cannot continue. We know that July 2021 was small compared to what can happen when the political agendas and criminals really start to play. The Western Cape is hard hit by a lack of police presence and capacity when it comes to crime, the reign of gangs and protests. It is only a matter of time before the police fails and are overpowered. When that happens, it will dwarf the events of Marikana. Should we wait for that to happen? No, Chairperson. We have to take preemptive actions, and therein lies the solution. That solution is to extend competent provinces the mandate to include the South African Police Service. Chairperson, we are forced to go this route as the face of crime differs in every province, and not every province has the face of the ANC. We should go this way in the Western Cape because this province can develop a blueprint for a successful provincial police force. We should walk this road to strengthen our police and to restore the respect they deserve. We should walk this road to save people's lives and their livelihoods, and once again allow our females to walk this beautiful country without the constant fear of asking themselves, am I next? As ek volgende, isaba ndim olandelayo. We should walk this way to protect state infrastructure and scarce resources that drives our economy. To conclude, Chairperson, as you conclude, I request government to commence the devolution of SAPS to competent provinces. This will need a blueprint, and I suggest that the blueprint be developed in the Western Cape, as it is the only competent province with the ability to implement it. I thank you, Baidanki.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sheikh.
Malibongwe, igama lamakhosikazi.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I will not be intimidated by Honorable Baha. But let me state, Honorable Chair, that this is well, greetings to everybody. It's just, I'm a bit hyped up now. Honorable Chair, this is a GA-sponsored debate on the devolution of the South African Police Services. This is a political issue. If the DA wanted to depoliticize this matter, Honorable Chair, they would not have federalized this debate, and they would have raised it in a different manner, like looking at the efficiency within the South African Police Service. But also let me state up front, Honorable Chair, the motion by the Democratic Alliance on the devolution of the South African Police Services to provinces is misplaced in terms of the South African Constitution, in terms of law, in terms of the functioning of the state, even in terms of international practices. The South African Constitution remains supreme and the main guiding document in our democratic society. Any law that is not in line with the Constitution is an unjust law. The South African Police Service derives its mandate from the Constitution to effectively manage the response and governance of law enforcement. Section 199, subsection 1 of the South African Constitution states that there must be a single police service. This will further ensure standardization in training and policing standards across the different law enforcement agencies across the country. Section 205, subsection 1 of the Constitution clearly states that the National Police Service must be structured to function in the national, provincial, and where appropriate local sphere of government. This is in order to maximize its capacity for effective, accountable, and efficient democratic policing. Furthermore, Section 205, subsection 2 says that national legislation must establish the powers and functions of the police service and must enable the police service to discharge its responsibilities effectively, taking into account the requirements of the provinces. These three sections of the Constitution clearly draw the mandate and the existence of the South African Police Service. Honorable Chair, the devolution of the police service would further be in contradiction with both sections 206 and 207 of the Constitution on the operation of the police service. These sections provide for political accountability, the power, control, and management of the police service, and clearly outlines these from national to provinces and to local spheres. Furthermore, the devolution of the South African Police Service will undermine even Chapter 3 of the Constitution, that explicitly outlines principles that must be observed and adhered to in terms of how the spheres of government ought to cooperate as the government of South Africa is indeed constituted national, provincial, and local spheres, which are distinctive, interdependent, and interrelated. Therefore, the call for the devolution of the South African Police Services seems to undermine the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. The law of South Africa is clear that the South African Police Service is a national competence. Honorable Chair, the African National Congress has resolved that there should be a single police service with a centralized command, where standards will be the same right across the country, and to avoid wasteful duplication and jurisdictional conflict. This is in line with both Section 199 and 205 of the Constitution. It should also be noted that throughout the world, there is an inclination for greater centralization and coordination of policing agencies in the interest of crime prevention. The single police service embraces a community-centered approach to policing underpinned by integrity and accountability. It should also be noted globally that democratic policing does not require a decentralized policing system. The important attribute of the single and central command police system is that it is responsible to the vulnerabilities and policing needs of the local communities. According to the 2016 White Paper on Safety and Security, a single police service plays a central role in the design of interventions that speak to local conditions while allowing for the formation of dedicated specialized units to ensure the delivery of essential policing services. Having a single police service is a constitutional imperative. Therefore, a move to have the devolution of the SAPS would require more than just a motion. It would require a constitutional amendment, as the Premier had said. Honorable Chair, we come from a terrible history where the local municipal police force was established by the apartheid government to brutally diffuse the organized struggle of the people of South Africa in their fight against racial discriminating system. This was a very militarized force with a reputation for brutality, corruption, and incompetence, and ill-equipped to deal with ordinary crime. Its imprints are still visible today and also accounts for the violence we face today as it normalized violence. The ANC single police system seeks to promote a demilitarized police service that seeks to protect the people of South Africa. Honorable Chair, the DA's motion of the devolution of SAPS lacks logic from the start. As indicated in their 29 campaign of a provincial police, I think that campaign also spoke about a provincial rail service. This was on a poster, Honorable Chair, and it blatantly risked misleading voters, as this was not quite what its manifesto was saying, clearly indicating a level of policy confusion in the DA. And it is further confusing, as the DA at first said in its manifesto, that the police competency should be devolved where appropriate on a provincial level. However, later they realized that this notion has no constitutional basis, as they admit in the House today. And it will create problems for them because what it would imply is that some provinces, it would imply that some provinces will still remain under SAPS, while the Western Cape, most likely under their confused notion, would remain under them. They then decided to change and say that all provinces must be given responsibility to manage their provincial police if they prove that they are up to the task. And this is without even qualifying what was meant by up to the task. These inconsistencies prove that the primary interest of the DA is to protect the interests of the minority with no intention of addressing the fundamental problems. Clearly, the DA is a party influenced by liberal and federal ideas that seeks to protect the interests of the minority and disregard the effects of the colonial and apartheid legacy on our society. It has a purposeful intention of disregarding the root causes of crime in various areas. In the context of the Western Cape, where the DA is ruling, the Western Cape accounts for a number of hotspots for contact crimes. The causes of crime among many include poverty, unemployment, and inequality, which are the objective realities that are faced by the people. To take this point further, in the Western Cape, the issue of environmental design is also a key factor, and I think the Minister touched on this one. But Honourable Chair, the point being made is that if we fail to address the root causes, we won't be able to address crime. And even if we devolve powers tomorrow, it will not yield any positive outcome in if such structural challenges are not resolved. Honourable Chair, the SAPS Act 1994 was enacted to give effect to legislation as outlined in the interim constitution. The need to fully align this to the final constitution must be rectified. As a result, Honourable Chair, the proposed South African Police Amendment Bill 2020, Clause 6, amends Section 5 of the SAPS Act in order to align it with the Constitution and establish a single and central command police service. The bill advocates for coordination between the police service and municipal police, and there is a need to have a clear framework on how these entities relate in relation to power, functions, and control of the municipal police service. The framework will create a smooth and a strong working relationship. We need to intensify the legislative framework in order to speed up the fight against crime in South Africa. We must finalize and implement the police white paper, especially on the amalgamation of all police services in South Africa, and include the law enforcement officers in the different metros, and all should be under the central command of the South African Police Service. The structuring and alignment of the aligning of the South African Police Service will present an opportunity to have uniformity in the police service and to develop consistent, strong strategies to fight against crime in South Africa. The uniformity will further ensure equal remuneration of the police service members across the country. These strategies must go beyond just being reaction crime control methods, which only seek to act after the incident, but to deploy proactive crime control methods, which focuses on the preventative means of fighting crime. The single police service must have a single vision and mission that would lead to set objectives and performance targets by which the performance of the police should be measured. The challenges raised by SAPS about the shortage of both human capital and budget do not warrant a need to devolve the policing powers and responsibilities to provinces, but requires an intervention to address the skewed allocation of resources to support the South African police services. In reality, whether you devolve power to provinces or not, as long as you have insufficient resources, you will face challenges. So there is a clear need to provide adequate resources for the operation of the police service. This will lead to recruiting and training more police members to increase police visibility on the ground. Further, this will enhance the SAPS to get advanced technological equipment to fight crime, prevent crime, and speed up the investigation process so that cases can be finalized. The motion to devolve the police service is clearly not a solution to the challenges that SAPS is facing. There is need to work together, and the DA must rather bring substantive solutions to the problems we are facing and address the objective realities. The DA clearly lacks the political insight, and hence they choose to deploy simple-looking solutions such as a motion of devolution, and yet they continue to intentionally ignore the structural challenges faced by South Africans within their province. In conclusion, Honorable Chair, the African National Congress believes that the motion of devolving the policing powers to the 9 provinces is indeed misplaced, as it is an unconstitutional move, and as the ANC, we have the responsibility to protect the Constitution, and Parliament as the legislative organ of the state remains the custodian of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. We believe that the constitutional imperative that there be a single police service under the command and control of the South African police be implemented to enhance and streamline our police and clearly define the role of local government in promoting peace and stability within our communities. The ANC acknowledges the challenges faced by SAPS, and these need all parties to contribute in bringing solutions so that we can have an effective and efficient police services. Honorable Chair, we remain one sovereign democratic state. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shaik. The next speaker is Honorable W. Tikana Kotiwe. Honorable Tikana Kotiwe.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson of the House, Honorable Minister and other ministers, Honorable members of the National Council of Provinces, invited guests, good afternoon. Community safety and well-being are of paramount importance. It required a coordinated community-driven safety strategy, which includes plans, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. Working with all organs of state, civil society, and the private sector, initiatives and efforts related to community safety must be rolled out across the country. The approach has to be all of government and also of society. The primary goal of a community safety programs and campaigns is to bring individuals, agencies, and organizations together in an atmosphere of support to build on existing community assets while recognizing challenges that cannot be solved in isolation. Policing and enforcement are crucial components of community safety. However, a vision for safety where we live, work, learn, and play in a safe, violent-free, and secure community, whether perceived or lived, cannot simply be legislated or enforced. So the debate on devolution or not is either irrelevant or not part of solution today. The complex nature of crime, violence, and safety issues requires a renewed understanding and a coordinated effort in response. The search for solutions demands deeper explanation and recognizes that it will take more than policy and policing to promote safety and reduce crime and violence over time. Broad-based strategies that include education, prevention, and intervention have elsewhere proven to be successful, complement enforcement measures towards a safety goal. A community working together to identify and meet its needs in each of these focus areas is well positioned to succeed and reach their vision in a safer and violent-free community. There's a wisdom and motivation for a gravitation to community safety as espoused in our Vision 2030 Governing Party Manifesto, medium-term strategic framework, and other key policy positions in South Africa. This realization is not unique to South Africa. There's a global shift necessary for a balanced and sustainable approach to building safe communities. Balance in this approach is comprised as follows. Community safety is much more than policing and enforcement. Police have communicated clearly that they cannot do it alone. Demands on traditional enforcement and the context in which police work has changed. The challenges and opportunities have given occasion to a new demand for purposeful partnership to most effectively respond to existing and emerging issues. This requires that we all embrace a full spectrum approach to community safety. This necessitates adequate attention to each of the focus areas identified above, which are education, prevention, intervention, and enforcement. Prevention is recognized as a key focus area for the overall well-being and safety of our communities. This includes continued support for a multiplicity of preventative initiatives. A vision of community safety requires that each citizen play a key role in both their own safety and the safety of others. Individual, families, neighborhoods, organization, and system all have a significant role to play. Community participation and a high level of coordination between government and non-governmental community resources to identify and respond to the needs of the community are essential ingredients for overall success. Success requires the mobilization of local, national, and international stakeholders on an ongoing public engagement. The Community Safety Forums is an example of a frontline collaborative network that brings together a web of agencies, including police and social workers, educators, public health workers, and others to tackle crime before it occurs. The approach is meant to align community needs, strategies of service agencies, priority outcomes, and resource allocation. It uses social capital, integration of human service delivery, and interconnected strategies for relationship building among the participants. Furthermore, it develops our understanding through monitoring and evaluation, which provides factual data as a reference point. The resulting shift in mindset is part of community safety movement, and a more coordinated community is everyone's responsibility. On education initiatives should be designed to increase awareness, understanding, accountability, and mobilizing of action. The department will provide connections between the partners and focuses of communication, public education, partnership building, and evidence-based problem solving. The centrality and leading role of our communication section would have to do more with more resources to drive this critically important element of the program. Regular and substantial connectivity with all communities, impacting relevant and useful information and tactful to prevent crime will be driving force. Intervention through well-crafted initiatives designed to respond to existing harmful behaviors will place the department strategically as it coordinates other stakeholders. Unemployment, family violence, parenting, negative peer influence, difficulty in school, substance abuse, and others are risk factors that require intervention by a plethora of other stakeholders. Early interventions must be promoted and coordinated as part of a comprehensive agenda to create safer community of the Eastern Cape and those of South Africa. Enforcement through civilian oversight function, we are focusing on enhancing this good work and extend our scope to the local sphere of government, which is metropolis. In order to succeed, we need to continue building and diversifying our capacity while simultaneously taking advantage of other ever-evolving technological development. Accordingly, the current draft of the Integrated Crime and Violence Prevention Strategy is a comprehensive response to the debate today. Instead of debating potential constitutional amendment, we should invest more time and energy elaborating the path to be traversed in implementation of the 6-pillar strategy. The National Crime Prevention Strategy, which identifies prevention of crime as a national priority and acknowledges social economic realities as a condition given rise to susceptibility to crime. In this regard, the National Crime Prevention Strategy transcends the boundaries and scope beyond effective policing and oversight. Importantly, it calls for the mobilization and participation of all of society and all government in fight against crime, and as a deliberate consequence, the creation of safer and violence-free communities. The National Crime Prevention Strategy envisages transformation and reorganization of government such that it positioned to facilitate direct and deliberate community participation in the fight against crime and creating an environment where citizens live, work, learn, and play in a safe and secure community and contribute to the actual and perceived safety and security of all. In order to be effective and efficient, the National Crime Prevention Strategy calls for a coordinated and focused approach and the creation of a dedicated and integrated crime prevention capacity. This capacity must exist in all levels of government and in society generally. It also envisages a paradigm shift from reactive to proactive approach in the fight against crime. In this regard, the department is envisaging a situation where resources are deployed in favor of preventing than responding. Certainly, and as we make this call, government must take a consensus decision to restore community safety. Currently, this goal is underfunded. In fact, the baseline, if defective, and would require urgent reconsideration going forward. Creation of a safe and violent-free environment has a huge multiplier effect and stimulates socio-economic development that is sustainable. The Eastern Cape province cannot wait for the resourcing and rollout of crime and violence prevention strategy that is integrated. We support the current establishment of the South African Police Services. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Tikana Kotiwe. We'll now move on to the next speaker, Honorable S. Zandamela. Honorable Zandamela. Honorable Zandamela.
No, thank you, Chelsea, since 1994. Has undertaken various efforts, Chairperson. Yes, Chairperson, am I audible? Chairperson?
Yes,
Chairperson.
Zandamela.
Yes, Chairperson.
Please
am
speak. Yes,
okay.
you're audible.
No, thanks, Chairperson. The South African Police Services since 1994 has undertaken various efforts to rebuild and gain its legitimacy in South Africa. It stands as a body which is under immense pressure to prove to society that it is capable of fulfilling its mandate. In the face of numerous challenges which is currently facing, it is a very complex environment. As the EFF, we note with deep concern how police perform and conduct has deteriorated over the past 2.5 decades, with priorities remaining unchanged. Under the watchful eye of SAPS, South Africans has over a period of 2 decades witnessed an increase in crime statistics. This year, we learned how contact crime increased by 60.6% compared to last year, as well as amongst others, the murder as well as sexual offenses. The South African Police Services faces challenges regarding safety and security even amongst their own ranks, as there has been a number of attacks on police stations, and this continues to rise. We have also witnessed how in recent years there has been an increase in public protest actions, which ultimately means that the crowd management functions on the part of the SAPS is more essential. This was evident for the whole world to see a couple of months ago when riots in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng occurred, as the SAPS stood by helplessly and watched, unable to intervene. The police to citizens ratio currently stands at 1 police to 327 people is also a challenge. Public trust in the South African police has been dropping for some time, and this is largely due to the lack of performance of SAPS coupled with high levels of police misconduct. Of a number of challenges which they are working under, such as budget cuts, civil unrest, corruption, and attacks on police stations amongst its efforts to restructure. They have failed in fulfilling its mandate to protect and serve the public, and it is poor leadership which has caused SAPS to fail. Chairperson, SAPS has been characterized for lack of professionalism, incompetence, and corruption on the part of the police, also as a result of culture of the ruling party. Recently, there have been attempts eradicate eradication, corruption, and criminality within with the dismissal of 12 senior officials. However, this is a chip of an iceberg, as corruption runs rampant within all ranks and all sectors. SAPS and the ruling party are still taking minimal steps in the fight against corruption. There is the lack of will on the part of both the SAPS and government to counter corruption. But perhaps, Chairperson, in the quest to assist SAPS, more attention needs to be paid to the issues which are driving core issues such as protest actions in South Africa. Protest actions are increasing, but what is of more concern is the increase in violent crimes which accompany such protests. Service delivery and work-related issues have been the cause of many protests in South Africa, coupled with socio-economic factors such as high youth unemployment rate, substance abuse, gender-based violence, which are driving the high levels of crime. These issues have been left largely ignored and have remained unresolved by the ruling party, with no sign of them ever being resolved. Such issues have contributed to the declining levels of public safety and poor performance of SAPS. So, Chairperson, it is necessary that changes be brought about the organizational structure of the SAPS so as to address these challenges and to meet the needs of the communities they serve. There must be national control and command so that the quality of police services is standardized across the country. There should be satellite police station within that will open 24 hours, 7 days a week, and in every ward in the country where there is no police station. There is a need to recapacitate community policing forums and encourage formation of crime watch in the streets and communities hotspots. There must also be consequence management for failure to adhere to these standards. The public will be more willing to cooperate with the police when they view them as a legitimate and trustworthy body. This can only come about through a willingness to do away with corruption, incompetency, and wrongdoing both within the SAPS and government, with the explicit timeline created to set a clear view of the future and direct the devolution process. Chairperson, the South African Police Services has undergone a number of strategic changes since 1994. And what is required is this new process in a revitalized organization which will implement its mandate, which is critical for the socio-economic success of this country. Such interventions can never come about through the guidance of the ruling party, as itself it's incompetent. The ruling party cannot be reformed. It must be destroyed together with the agenda they are representing. The only true recourse remaining at the hands of South Africans is through their vote. It is only through the EFF where strategies for improving efficiency, accountability, communication, and service delivery can be achieved. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is going to be Honorable V.R. Shongwe. Honorable Shongwe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me formally greet the Chairperson as well as the Deputy Chairperson of the House, Honorable Ann Lucas, and the House Chairperson of the committees, Honorable Jay Nyambi, the Chief Whip of the National Council of Provinces, Honorable S. Mohai, colleagues from different provinces that are here in our midst, honorable members of the NCOP, ladies and gentlemen, I greet all of you in the afternoon. And I want to say, Chairperson, it is indeed an honor and a privilege to partake in this debate. In 1996, the government adopted a National Crime Prevention Strategy, which is shortly known as NCPS, as one part of its response to increasing public concern over crime. The NCPS motivated a shift in the emphasis from crime control to crime prevention. That is a shift towards understanding crime as a social issue requiring a wide array of preventative measures instead of the traditional criminal justice responses. Importantly, Honorable Chair and members, for the SAPS, it is emphasized that crime prevention could not be the sole responsibility of police and laid out a framework for interdepartmental collaboration within the government, as well as the crime prevention partnership with non-governmental actors and local communities. And I must say, Honorable Chairperson, as we're debating this particular critical issue, which has to do with the safety of our people in the country and in our province, in Mpumalanga in particular. The past few challenges that we have faced in the country and in the province, I think Honorable Chairperson are saying to us as security clusters, we should then work hard and take it as a yardstick to make sure that we improve in a way that we're dealing with security matters as a security cluster family. And I must say, Chair, that we need to support the minister instead of coming with critics against the ministry, to make sure that we bring down all relevant units and strategic units that will be able to deal with different categories of crime that are faced by our people at local, provincial, and national level. Amongst those relevant units in the SAPS, I've said in the past, and I want to repeat it, in front of the minister and honorable members, is the whole issue of the TRT unit, which is commonly known as Amaperete. That unit, whoever created, and I know that it was the minister and the national commissioner, they had a particular reason that tries to deal with the level of crime and the criminals that are infested in our provinces and the entire country. You know that in the SAPS, we have a task force that the minister is quite aware of and the national commissioner. Those particular units are relevant in dealing with some level of crime and the level of criminals that we are facing on day-to-day basis and faced by our people that some of the honorable members are claiming to represent and call them that they are the poor of the poorest, they are ordinary people, and all the names that they are talking about. But on the same, debate, they are only focusing at a particular province and forget that crime does not know of a particular province. Crime is crime wherever it happens, where whoever political party is leading a particular province. That is the crime. And I want to say, we must make sure that we also, as people, to work with communities, we make through the ministry, get use of our informers on the ground. And they must be protected because the local informers in our different areas can play a long way and road in making sure that they tip the police and all security agents to hit the necessary target at the right time, at the right place, and to the correct people. Issues of CPF that my colleague from Eastern Cape have spoken about, I can't emphasize that point more. There's nowhere where we can deal with crime without involving, the communities. And specialized unit in terms of dealing with GBV issues in our different, communities, in our different provinces. That particular sickness called GBF, it has been described as a most, pandemic in our different areas by the president and the Ministry of Police in the country. We are not focusing on those particular issues, but instead we are talking of political power and to our different, provinces, and want to compete over criminal and crime issues. I don't think that will help our communities if really we are worried about them and for their safety. And I must say, Honorable Chairperson, with the experience that I have in the community safety, security, and liaison, we can't win the match against the criminals unless we work together and make sure that we support the ministry. And the Constitution of Republic of South Africa is stating clearly, under the quotation that the minister and the MEC from Eastern Cape have raised, ukuthi issue yamaphoyisa is a competency at national level. And we can't then want to regionalize and, sort of talk about different provinces around those matters. The issues that we need to make sure that we safeguard are the issues that are affecting, our police and police stations around the provinces and the countries. The issue that of missing, dockets, the under-resourcing and so on. And the minister himself has said most of the budget have been directed to Western Cape, and Western Cape still is the one province that is complaining so much. Ourselves as different provinces, we don't have enough resources in dealing with issues of crime to empower our provincial commissioners and all the other units that I've talked about. Yet there are other provinces that are mostly attended to by the national. And I understand what is the reason of doing that. It is because Western Cape, of course, is mainly infested about gangsterism and all sort of criminal, elements that are there. And I want to say, let us work together and make sure that we share the strategies, especially the national strategy in dealing with crimes in our different provinces, and make sure that we improve the capacity of our policing in our different provinces, instead of competing and contesting the space with the minister. Every time we come here, we talk of contesting the space with the minister. But if you look at the statistic of the crime, nationally, provincially, and otherwise, we are not winning the match, because instead of focusing in dealing with crime and criminals in our different provinces, we are contesting the space with the minister and the national commissioner. And I want to say, let us make sure that we hold our hands together, all of us. When we meet at the MINMEC, we share the good practices that are there and strategies in our different provinces in making sure that we fight crime and we don't compete out of the 9 provinces, but instead we are working in making sure that our communities are safe in all our spaces. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shongwe. We will now move on to Honorable F. Du Toit from the Freedom Front Plus. Honorable Du Toit, but as Honorable Du Toit takes the platform, I'll ask the Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, Honorable Lucas, to come and take over chairing. Honorable Du Toit.
Voorzitter, ek haal aan uit die VF Plus 2019 verkiesingsmanifest, gesag op die laagste moontlike vlak. 'n Federale kenmerk van die Suid-Afrikaanse grondwet is die provinsies. Min daarvan realiseer egter omdat die toon vir ANC provinsies in 'n toeliehuis aangegee word en nie in die provinsie self nie. 'n Provinsie waar oppositiepartye regeer, ervaar dat nasionale departemente hul jurisdiksie daaroor skry. Die VF Plus glo aan die beginsel van subsidiariteit Dit beteken dat alle gesag op die laaste moontlike vlak uitgeoefen moet word en provinsies doen slegs wat munisipaliteite nie kan doen nie en doen nie die nasionale regerings slegs wat die provinsies nie kan doen nie. Dit bevorder deelname en gee ryker eenhoud aan die demokrasie, sluit aanhaling. Voorsitter, hierdie benadering sluit aan by die onderwerp van vandag se debat. What is the current approach towards governance of SAPS in South Africa? The President appoints the Cabinet and the Minister of Police. The Minister of Police appoints provincial commissioners in consultation with the provincial premiers. The threat of political bias can thus be traced throughout the whole process. This results in possible political interference in day-to-day responsibilities of the men and women in blue. Met die huidige track record en kaderontplooiing en herontplooiing van politieke figure en persone in belang en met staatsentiteite kan daar aangeneem word, voorsitter, dat selektiewe bevordering van polisielede, selektiewe bevordering en op die einde van die dag selektiewe wetstoepassing kan plaasvind. Onlangse ooglopende voorbeelde hiervan was minister Cele se teeparty by meneer Jacob Zuma se kaserne. Die feit dat geen arrestasies vir oortreding van regulasies tydens hierdie arrestasie opmarse plaasgevind het nie en ook geen arrestasies tydens die EFF se onlangse mars waar SAP-lede medepligtig was wat deur in werklikheid toe te sien dat die optoggangers wat die regulasies oorskry het eerder vergesel as gearresteer was. Should SAPS be devolved, the effect will be the same as in some successful states in the USA, where the provincial constituent elects a provincial commissioner that conforms to a predetermined criteria that includes qualification and experience from the ranks of the police service. This appointment must be on the basis of merit and not political affiliation. This commissioner will then be in office for a set term. Should he or she have not yielded the expected results, it will be up to the constituents to re-elect another commissioner that will be able to do the work and bear the fruit of their initial work. Hierdie benadering sal provinsies in staat stel om steeds aan die nasionale wetgewing onderhewig te wees en terselfdertyd die uitdagings van die provinsies aan te spreek, voorsitter. Daar kan byvoorbeeld in die Noordwes-provinsie 'n groter komplement openbare orde polisie en 'n eenheid wat hom toespits op gewelddadige misdade en plaasaanvalle aangestel word. Daar was gisteraand weer 'n brutale aanval op 'n egpaar in Koster. In die Weskaap en Gauteng groter fokus op bendegeweld, dwelms ensovoorts. Die tekort aan brandtoerusting en die algemene toerusting vir openbare orde polisie in Gauteng kan deur die provinsie aangespreek en aangevul word. Dit is alom bekend dat alle provinsies nie dieselfde uitdagings het nie. It will also be possible for provinces to allocate additional funds to the different police sections in their province that require extra bolstering since the national allocation is insufficient. Die afwenteling van magte, voorsitter, spesifiek in die Suid-Afrikaanse polisie is van kardinale belang. Politieke inmenging, politieke voorspraak en die beskerming van die burgery moet in alle tye vermy word en tot die minimum beperk word. Suid-Afrika het van dese week weer gesien hoe kaderontplooiing in die politieke langspel tot gevolg gehad het dat een meneer Jacob Zuma op sogenaamde mediese parool die burgerlike vertroue in die korrektiewe stelsel en die regeringsmodel geheel en al vertrap het, wyl die hospitaaldeure vir hom oopgeswaai in die rigting van die Nkandla Spa aangedui het. Devolution is the solution. Minister Bekkie Cele, your work is to ensure the safety of South Africans, not to do politics. Dankie, voorsitter.
Thank you very much, baie dankie, agbare de Tooy. We are continuing with the debate and we will now call on Honorable M.R. Siono of Limpopo, Chairperson on Transport, Safety, Security and Liaison. Honorable Siono.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP and Deputy Chairperson, members of the House, the Honorable Minister of Police, the Honorable Chief Whip of the NCOP, the Honorable members of the NCOP, and all MECs connected here. I greet you all. Honorable Chair, as we debate this afternoon, we await the report of the panel set up by the President to evaluate what could have gone wrong during the riot time. it is important that we ask ourselves the most difficult questions. How far have we gone in transforming the police service and the entire criminal justice system? How professional are our police in controlling crowds and dealing with members of the public? How satisfied and confident are we as citizens in the service we receive from police stations on a daily basis? Are we safe, and do we feel safe in our homes, schools, and at work? Can we say with confidence that we now have the police service of the people for the people? To what extent have we engraved in our consciousness a community policing culture that supports the police in carrying out their duties? It is in the aftermath of July events which now has to make us decisive about the devolution of such powers to the provinces. This and many other questions are addressed in the National Development Plan 2030, which envisages a new society where people living in South Africa will be safe and feel safe at home, at school, and at work, and they will enjoy a community life free of fear. Women would walk freely in the streets and children play safely outside. Honorable Chair, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, the NDP is a government plan which clearly outlines what should happen in every sector of the society. With the July aftermath, SAPS will never be the same. Correctly or wrongly, the process reactivates the planning, the changes and the transformation that should happen in our police service. Given all what happened in July, the question will be, what is to be done? Is the devolution of the police service to provinces a solution under the current circumstances? The answer to this fundamental question is a big no, Honorable Chair. As this August House, we must be very careful of not reacting to the situations. We already have more than a handful of municipal police services almost in every city, and the question we've got to ask ourselves is what has been our experience so far with their effectiveness. The July experience informs us that transformation should happen so that we avoid the past racial or parallel authority. Honorable Chairperson, there are many lessons from the performance of Bantustan and apartheid municipal police systems which we can draw from. With the benefit of hindsight and knowing what we already know from our apartheid past, we cannot, in the name of devolution or under any circumstance, return to the misrule of the past. It will be undemocratic to repeat this past of our history with a full conscience and with our eyes open. But I do understand why some of my colleagues from opposition benches will want. Having said this, Honorable Chairperson, I wish to submit that there is nothing fundamentally wrong with the current structure of the SAPS, as others would want us to believe. The solution is not the provincialization of SAPS, but the equipping and the resourcing of police on the ground to discharge their most immediate task, which is to make our people safe. What is needed is not more bureaucracy at the provincial office, but more boots and vehicles on the ground. What is needed are more police stations and not less police stations. What is needed are more collaborations between the police and CPFs, neighborhood watches, and CSFs. This is what the ANC government means by sector policing. Sector policing is a modern democratic policing style to address the safety and security needs to every inhabitant of South Africa at a local level. Sector policing is a crime prevention technique which entails understanding the causes of crime and the enabling factors. It is about the identification of hotspots and vulnerable communities and dispensing equivalent number of resources towards addressing the concerns of affected areas. For a sector policing strategy to work, What is needed is a new type of a police official. More than ever before, we need a police official who sees themselves as a community problem solver and not merely crime fighter. Whilst a police official must continue to respond to complaints, much arrest in the normal course of events, they should be responsible for interacting, consulting, and engaging with the community in addressing crime at the local level. The sector commander, on the other hand, should act as an innovator, looking beyond individual incidents for new ways to solve crime problems at the local level. Fortunately, these views are already embraced by SAPS itself in their sector policing operational guide published in 2015, and this is what we need to see happening. In conclusion, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, instead of hatching all the relics of the past which have failed our people, members of the opposition need to join us in working with SAPS to implement their operational plan on sector policing in fulfillment of the goals and objectives of the NDP. I thank you, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Siono. We now call on Honorable M. Shackleton of the Democratic Alliance to continue the debate.
Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Minister and Deputy Minister, Honourable Premiers, Honourable Members, and fellow South Africans, good afternoon. It is a privilege to speak in this chamber as a special delegate from the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. More now than ever, and especially following the violent unrest experienced in July, this country needs solutions when it comes to policing. The devolution of police control to allow for provincial police forces allows for a differentiated approach and for decision-making to take place as close to the ground as possible where things happen. According to the Institute for Security Studies, police numbers will drop by a sizable 24,000 posts over the next 3 years due to public sector budget cuts. The impact will be acute at station level, with nearly 2,000 fewer detectives and 11,000 fewer visible police officials. Yet only 15 posts will be lost at the top level of general and brigadier. This means the expensive and ineffective senior management structure largely remains, while thousands of operational posts are slashed. This country needs to be saved from national government. If we were to have provincial police force services, not a police force, a service, we would be in a position where we don't have to let the citizens of our beautiful country be victims of poor decision-making and the questionable allocation of resources. If we were to have provincial police services, we can make relatively obvious decisions. Every police station in Gauteng complains about a lack of vehicles because it takes many months to get a vehicle back for simple repair work. We all take our own vehicles into local mechanics and dealerships, and it really isn't rocket science to allow the police to make localized decisions where they can drive or tow damaged vehicles to repair shops that have a quick turnaround time. Police stations should be able to hire and interview people for vacant positions. The current extensive bureaucratic setup is causing staff shortages in all police stations in Gauteng that I have ever visited. A few examples of resourcing of the SAPS in Gauteng include that 54% of the flying squad vehicles in the province are out of service. In April 2021, I exposed that 2,170 police vehicles were out of service in the province. And in May 2021, I exposed that the Gauteng SAPS Air Wing only has one helicopter in service. The people of this country don't have to be victims to this. Through effective and clean governance at provincial level, like in the Western Cape, budgets can work to alleviate this highly problematic situation once SAPS is placed under the control of competent provinces. In Gauteng, I'm the sponsor of a community safety oversight bill in the legislature, which seeks to emulate the Western Cape's approach by calling for a provincial advisory committee to be put in place to advise the MEC. SAPS complained of a lack of sufficient intelligence in the case of the violent unrest. What happens in the Western Cape is that a provincial advisory committee consisting of representatives from across all sectors of society, including legal, NGOs, business, security companies, and CPFs, brief the MEC for community safety on a regular basis, providing him real intelligence from the ground. We need this in Gauteng, and all of South Africa needs this. It also calls for the establishment of a provincial police ombudsman, which the public can report police inefficiencies to. This is not like IPID, which addresses police brutality and is savagely under-resourced. It is not a duplication of roles. We did see police inefficiencies during the unrest, such as people escaping arrest and people complaining about a lack of service from the SAPS all the time. It is not our intention to work against SAPS, but rather with them to root out corruption and inefficiencies and to give citizens of our country the safety, security, and dignity that they deserve. The bill also provides for the accreditation of neighborhood watches. We all saw the role that private citizens played during the violent unrest, and ordinary people need to be roped in a responsible and reasonable manner when it comes to fighting crime. There are not enough police officers in South Africa. According to 2019 and 2020 studies, there are 435,000 private security officers in South Africa versus 160,000 SAPS officers and an estimated complement of 192,777,000 across the entire SAPS. There are real stories within SAPS where police patrol all night without rest in one vehicle in a community and get back to find pages of complaints as to the matters they could not attend to. These matters could be resolved if we help people to get trained and accredited to serve their communities. Imagine what competent provinces with bold new ideas could do if the SAPS was placed fully under provincial control. These are only some of the examples where a competent province like the Western Cape are doing things differently and are doing them right. Only the DA gets things done. No one can have freedom while they live in fear. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Shackleton. The next will be Honorable N.E. Nkosi of the African National Congress.
Okay.
Your time.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chairperson. Greetings to your good self, the Chief Whip, the Chairperson, all members present in their house, the Minister, Deputy Minister, and the MSS. The motion to devolve SAPS power to provinces by the Democratic Alliance is a clear indication that the DA lack progressive strategy and tactics of fighting against crime in South Africa. And hence the DA always call for more police and even South African Defence Force. It is because they do not have a plan to combat crime. Combating crime is only the responsibility of police, but require a collective effort from different stakeholders. In the fight against crime, the police must build working relations
with the civil society. The public participation is critical in the fight against crime. The focus should be about mobilizing the society to make it difficult for criminals to conduct their operations. The criminals' activities require both the tools of a trade of criminals and conducive environment for such activities to happen, and the community must have create tough environment for criminal activities to happen. The crime prevention strategy has 4 pillars, and the second pillar is about reduction the opportunities for crime to increase, also to ease the detention and identification of criminals. And this pillar requires strong public participation. The community police forum must be launched where they are not in existence. In areas where there are CPFs, they must be strengthened and adequately trained to fight against crime. There should be a program of mobilization and integration of different structures in the society, including the school governing bodies and parent-teacher association with safety and security structures. Chairperson, in order to defeat crime in our communities, there must be a street committees elected in different streets to work together with different civil society structures to combat crime. The Democratic Alliance must not undermine the program of CPF, as it has done in the Western Cape. The DA only supported the Neighborhood Watch program that is mainly in the white-dominated areas, but there is a need to support all initiatives and even bring back the Bambanani project too for school security in the Western Cape. The Bambanani project was doing a great job in combating crime in the trains, buses, and in the entire communities. The rural safety plan must also be made visible in the rural areas. The youth of South Africa must play an instrumental role in the program of community policing, which include night street patrols. The rural safety plan intends to mobilize the rural communities to work together to combat crime. The rural safety plan also seeks to create access to the police stations for the rural communities. It is an integrated process that is a community-centered approach of policing. The police stations must be centers for coordination, the mass mobilization against crime. The fight against crime will require a massive project of educating the people of South Africa about the impact of crime in their livelihood, educating people about the impact of crime in the economy, and remind the people that a safe society allows for free economic activities to take place, and it is attractive to investors. The fight against crime is very important because safety affects all other activities and the well-being of the people. The crime prevention strategy outlined the influence of the media in shaping public perception, and that media platform should be used to educate the people about how they should view crime and how they should respond to it. An effective communication strategy based on reliable information is important in properly informing the public opinion in the fight against crime. The National Strategy Pillar 3 speaks to the public values and education, and it is concerned with initiatives that primarily intend to change and influence how the community react to crime and violence. And it further looks at the programs that utilize public education and awareness on how the public can meaningfully partake in the crime prevention project. Chairperson, the public education program seeks to improve understanding of the criminal justice by the people, and that will enable a fuller public participation. It further enhances the fight against crime through developing community values and social pressure against criminality. The public awareness of the causes and the implication of crime include basic things like the impact of purchasing of stolen goods and how it contributes to criminal activities. Thieves will have challenges in continuing stealing if the people do not buy stolen goods. Therefore, the education program seeks to alter people's attitudes towards and response to crime and activities which support crime. This is another initiative to fight against crime and support the South African Police Service. In the State of the Nation address of 2021, President Cyril Ramaphosa said that ending gender-based violence is imperative if we lay a claim to being a society that is rooted in equality and non-sexism. Therefore, protecting the vulnerable group of the society is a priority to the ANC government. There is a need to support victims of the gender-based violence even after the trial. Gender-based violence and crimes against children are receiving special attention through the establishment of specialized police units to investigate crime against children and the creation of victim aid centers at which interdisciplinary services are offered to victims of these crimes. In addition, special court facilities which protect young witnesses have been established around the country and are supported in some areas by prosecutors specializing in this case. A number of governmental and non-governmental education and awareness programs exist to educate children to deal with abuse and to raise awareness of gender crimes and crimes against children. This proves that the ANC government is prepared to fight against gender-based violence. The police must create a strong working relationship with the social workers in supporting the survivors of gender-based violence. Honorable Chairperson, the motion of devolution of SAPS power to provinces by the DA is not only unconstitutional, but also speak the inability of the DA to fight with crime through other means, but mainly focus on the old violent tactic of the apartheid regime that was very militarized in the townships, brutally dealing with the Black majority. In conclusion, Chairperson, the fight against gender-based violence will need more than just police, but a full public participation in order to defeat this pandemic as declared by the President. A collective effort from all citizens is the best solution to problems. Therefore, there is no need to devote SAPS, but there's a need to support the police service because SAPS is a community-based police service that is accountable to the people. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mkosi. The next will be Honorable F. Mazibuko of Gauteng, MEC for Community Safety.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP. Let me acknowledge the members of the NCOP and the special delegates in attendance. Let me also acknowledge Honorable Minister and all protocol observed. My colleagues, MECs from Mpumalanga and Eastern Cape and ANC members that have already debated have said a mouthful and have actually covered most of the points that I wanted to share with you today. But again, let me remind honorable members who want federalism to note this. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, Section 206, Section 3, clearly stipulates the responsibilities of the provinces. Each province is entitled to A, monitor police conduct, B, to oversee the effectiveness and efficiency of the police service, C, including to oversee the effectiveness and efficiency of the police service, including receiving reports on the police service, C, to promote good relations between the police and the community, D, to assess the effectiveness of visible policing, E, liaise with the cabinet member responsible for policing with respect to crime and policing in the province. Further, the Constitution Further, the Constitution empowers us as provinces under Section 206, subsection 5, that we may investigate or appoint a commission of inquiry into complaints of police inefficiently and breakdown in relation between police and any community, and also we can make recommendations to the cabinet member responsible for policing. Section 206, subsection A, also stipulates that a committee composed of the cabinet member, this time it's Minister Tele, and members of the executive councils, they mean us, responsible for policing, must be established to ensure effective coordination of the police service and effective cooperation among the spheres of government. With that said, we believe that devolution of the SAPS is not necessary because as provinces, we are empowered enough to hold police accountable, and if they are not doing their work, and get them to be Bobby on the beat. Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, as the Gauteng province, through the SAPS Act, we have established 3 metro police departments, namely in Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, and Johannesburg, which serve as a force multiplier in the fight against crime, because their responsibility includes social crime prevention, added to that, the bylaw enforcement. Further, that as part and parcel of fighting crime, the establishment of the organs of people's power, such as the community police forums in all our police stations, and the community safety forums in all the municipalities, except of course in Tshwane and Midvaal, make it easy for us as provinces to be able to fight crime at local level. Remember, crime is happening within our communities. Community patrollers, neighborhood watches, and the security industry are another way of helping police to fight crime. Honorable members, criminals live amongst us. The Know Your Neighborhood campaigns and building the street committees are one of the best practices in the help to fight crime. Sector crime forums and sector policing are what brings policing closer to the people. Each and every metro and municipality must also help and set aside budgets and empower their municipal and metro police to fight crime. These powers are recognized in the Constitution. Section 12 of the SAPS Act stipulates that the provincial commissioner has the command and control over the service within the province. Further elaborates on the specific powers with regards to the establishing and maintaining police stations, as well as determining the boundaries and police stations. Section 64K stipulates that the provincial commissioner, after consultation with me, MEC, shall establish policing coordinating committees, which include the municipal police services within the province. As the Gauteng province, we have revolutionized policing through Operation Ukaimula. The fight against crime has been taken to another level. All the boots are on the ground. Criminals know there is no place to hide. The police will find you. Communities have got their own campaigns, known as the Washatsotsi, which focusing on fighting crime and its remnants. As the Gauteng province, we also have got the Gauteng Growing Together 2030 Safety Strategy, a strategy that is premised on the 8 pillars, which include improving the quality of policing, encouraging community participation, promoting social crime prevention, integrity management, institutional arrangement, creating safer roads, and promoting pedestrian and improving traffic law. Crime is one of the biggest problems that Gauteng citizens are faced with. The scourge of crime is worsened by the increase in the trio crimes and violence against women and children. The department is committed to improving the manner in which the police are dealing with these crimes through continuous engagements with them and mobilizing communities in breaking the silence and them participating in the Know Your Neighborhood campaign, such as the Take Charge campaign. The current rate of also immigration and population growth in informal settlements further exacerbates the problem. Shacks are built closer to each other, which also makes policing very difficult. The uncontrolled selling of alcohol and drugs in the province is a serious concern. As we know, drugs are killing our youth, and alcohol is another contributor factor to even to the GBVF. In conclusion, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, as the Gauteng provincial government, we are not casual with power. We even set aside money and help the SAPS to purchase state-of-the-art cars with latest technology to help in the fight against crime. And we are currently building a state-of-the-art command center where all the technologies that ever exist in this country will be under one umbrella in assisting police to also fight crime. Minister, we need more police in Gauteng. Please open the colleges and start recruiting. Many police officers have been killed by criminals. They've also succumbed to coronavirus. Police are now thin on the ground. The bills that seek to amend the SAPS Act, Honorable Minister, kindly include the provincial traffic police so that they are able to work as part and parcel of the force multiplier, as it has been demonstrated during the implementation of the Disaster Management Act. And more focus was also on compliance and fighting crime. Gone are the days when police only knew the scope, skid, and donor. Nowadays, police work with our communities in policing them. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Mazibuko. We just want to find out whether Councillor Boyson could successfully log on, because apparently he's experiencing network problems. Honorable Councillor Boyson. This is an indication, the silence is an indication that you are still struggling. We will continue and we will now call on Honorable Lond of the Democratic Alliance. The lockdown is a good video.
Honorable Deputy House Chairperson, it's not the lockdown, it's new married life that's making me gain this weight. Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy House Chair, it's good to see you again. Honorable Premier and people in the House and online. I firstly want to congratulate my ANC colleagues. It seems in COVID, you're barely matching your attendance register in the House that was pre-COVID. So kudos to you. And I also want to, then on a more serious note, thank the Honorable Premier, who actually ran on an election promise, got a mandate, and is now delivering on that promise. And there's not many politicians that do that. So thank you for that. And I'm sure in spite of what everybody say and criticize you, the Western Cape voters is proud, and thank you for delivering on that. Now, policing at its very core is localized. They should be policing the needs of communities, the communities they serve. That is why we provide metrics on individual police stations, and in turn, you allocate resources based on those metrics. The problem that arises, however, is that the national government is unable to make the necessary decisions based on the information in front of them. Now, Honorable Minister Krele, you show your absolute disdain for voters. Firstly, by not acting and being proactive in KZN and Gauteng now with the riots. You fail to take accountability. You fail to take accountability for the increase in crime stats year upon year upon year. And you don't even have the basic respect to be in the House for a debate as important as this. The only reason, and I repeat, the only reason you do not want the SAPS powers to be devolved to the provinces is because it will show how completely incompetent you are. You are more focused in running internal political campaigns than looking after the citizens of South Africa. Honorable colleagues from the ANC, Honorable Shongwe online, Honorable Sheikh, I mean, it's a sad reality that
will the honourable member take a question?
I will.
Honourable Member.
Does the member agree that we have a central constitution, a central government in South Africa? That some people are trying to interpret that as having federal elements. Others, particularly in the Western Cape, is talking about secessionists. Do you support the secessionist movement in the Western Cape? Thank you.
Honourable Dangor, as a former diplomat, you actually now play right into my next sentence. I'm going to just tell you a short story. The sad reality of the South African education system is that 80% of grade 4 pupils cannot read for comprehension in any language. But it seems like you are the same as these grade 4 pupils. Shongwe, Sheikh, all of you, you cannot read for comprehension. Read the Constitution, Section 205. Honourable Premier will get into this now. We are not saying that we are anti-South Africa, or we are anti-Limpopo, or we are anti-KZN. When we say let's devolve the police powers, if there's a competent province that can deliver services, as the Western Cape have shown, time upon time upon time, with Honourable Premier Noma French Mbombo leading the fight against COVID. I mean, the Eastern Cape, hang your head in shame. But here we have made sure that our citizens are looked after. If we look at how our local governments and our provincial governments deliver year in and year out, getting clean audits, making sure that services are delivered to the people, that is what we say. Give competent governments.
Honourable Dangor, Honourable Dangor, you have asked your question. Honourable Lon, I think you are speaking, you must just remember that your time doesn't allow for this kind of extensive response that you are now giving.
Honourable Dangor, let me tell you through you, Deputy Chair. Getting the right answer doesn't mean you will get an answer that you will like. And that's the problem. But I mean, apart from without being able to read without comprehension, ek sal prentjies vir jou teken ook, and then you can follow the pictures together with the words. I mean, we are currently facing a crisis in our country. Our citizens are in danger, okay, because we have a failing South African police service. Provinces and municipalities are stepping into the space because the SAPS, they are failing. There's municipalities, not just in the Western Cape, across the country, that is now spending resources to look after their communities, to make it a safer environment, so that kids can walk from home to school more safely. Okay, so that businesses find a safe, enabling environment to create businesses, create jobs. That is what competent governments, they do that. Unfortunately, you are so tied up in this echo chamber of the ANC that you do not know how you are running this country down into the ground. Honourable Premier, it is important that you stand firm in spite of all the criticism, because you and every South African knows what is being delivered in this province is a world apart from what's being delivered by every single ANC government. The same way that you have stood up in the past against this ANC government that cannot see how they are running this country into the ground. The same way, please stand up and fight so that there's an example of a province that knows how to look after their citizens, to keep their citizens safe, and to show that South Africans, there is hope. This ANC government is not the future. They cannot pay their staff. They cannot register their candidates. They cannot run proper governments. They cannot read for comprehension. Please, voters, get rid of them on the 1st of November. You deserve better.
Next will be Honourable Fritz, Western Cape MEC Community Safety.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Honourable Chairperson, Deputy Chair of the National Council of Provinces, the Minister of Police, Deputy Minister of Police, all my colleagues from the other provinces, MECs and chairs of standing committees, to all our premiers, and specifically to Premier of the Western Cape, Alan Windy, and all fellow South Africans and members of the National Council of Provinces. We have come together here today to debate a very important issue. For many of our citizens, the people we serve, what we are debating here today is literally a matter of life and death. And so some of us can make jokes about safety, but this is a matter of life and death. Chairperson, a fundamental duty of the state is that of protecting citizens from all kinds of harm. Ironically, this even includes protecting them from harms they inflict upon themselves. And in a democracy, the noble social contract between the state and the citizen is one in which all citizens and all parties have obligations, roles, and responsibilities. In the case of the state, one of the key roles and responsibilities of protecting its citizens from harm, in specific terms, Chairperson, the state has to ensure that the relevant state institutions, such as the police, law enforcement, traffic, and the broader criminal justice system, are geared to perform the roles and to perform those roles effectively. It is when this does not happen that citizens begin to feel that they have been abandoned by the state. And in this country, there's indeed a growing feeling and realization that a criminal element has infiltrated the state. When this happens, the noble social contract begins to unravel. And then citizens begin to take matters into their own hands. It's one of the signals, indicators, Chairperson, of a failed state. Chairperson, as the recent spate of looting and criminality has so vividly shown, we have reason to feel extremely concerned about the ability of SAPS to fulfill its duties in terms of the social contract. Minister Cele can boast all he wants about how well SAPS handled the looting, but the evidence of the 342 lives that were lost and the huge damage to the economy points to the exact opposite. The truth is that when SAPS needed to show their mettle and ability to protect lives and property, they were nowhere to be found. My introductory comments are relevant because I am extremely concerned about statements made by SAPS leadership on various occasions where they have effectively admitted that they are often unable to protect our citizens in terms of the social contract I referred to. What is even more concerning is that this admission of that SAPS has lost their battle to control and push crime back and criminality is backed up by their own statistics. Deputy Chair, we are facing the prospect of a further deterioration of the situation if we do not get our act together. The United Nations recommend one police officer for every 450 citizens, while SAPS has a national police to population ratio of 1 for every 400 citizens in the Western Cape. We have a police to population ratio of 1 for every 507 citizens in this province in the Western Cape. In Ravensmead and in that police precinct, on the Cape Flats, the police to population ratio is a staggering 1 to every 895 citizens. Now that is completely unacceptable. In his media briefing on the quarterly crime statistics, Mr. Cele told us that because of COVID, SAPS has made no new recruits since the beginning of 2020. At the same time, the minister also announced that he is signing off about 100 early retirement applications per month. So while we have had no new boots on the ground, for many years, police officers are also retiring in staggering numbers. And then, to top it all, SAPS is not making any new recruits. Deputy Chairperson, to paraphrase one of what the ANC like to, Vladimir Lenin, whom many of you still so nostalgically quote, and he asked one of his speeches, what is to be done? I see one of our previous speakers also asked, what is to be done? The first thing that needs to happen is an upfront acknowledgement by the ANC as the national ruling party and by the Minister Cele as the responsible Minister for Policing that we need a complete rethink of the nature of policing. The bottom line is, Minister Cele, policing has failed this country under your watch. The bottom line, Minister Cele, every day, the confidence of our citizens in this centrally controlled, this obsession with central control, commanded SAPS grows less and less. The bottom line, Mr. Cele, is under your political watch. SAPS has deteriorated into a dysfunctional, unaccountable organization. The citizens of this country requires a hitherto unheard of admission by the ANC and you, Minister, that things cannot continue in this current zero-sum path of destruction and dysfunction. Chairperson and Deputy Chair, let me expand on this issue. There's a tendency for the ANC to think that the only correct policy response to challenges that emerge in government and in governance is the concentration of power in the hands of the ministers. We need this most vividly, and we see it most vividly in support of the ANC giving to the proposal for the new greater centralization in policing powers in the new SAPS Act, the amended Act they're trying. At one level, we shouldn't be surprised by this. The ANC has been singularly unable to break its ideological and political links with Stalinism, which by its very nature glorifies and codifies absurd notions of democratic centralism. And we know what democratic centralism boils down to. It's where the ruling party collapses into the state. The ruling party collapses into the state, where it becomes impossible to separate out the state and the party. Now, where the state and party believes that they have the answer to everything. Democratic centralism is a statism. They're obsessed with everything must be dealt by the state centrally. Nowhere else, perhaps outside Cuba or North Korea, is such a fundamentally undemocratic concept codified and celebrated as much as the case in the ANC South Africa. And Chairperson, let me not miss the opportunity to remind us to look for the origins and genesis of state capture in the ANC and Stalinist notion of the democratic revolution and the national democratic revolution. This stillborn revolution, which is supposedly now in its second phase, has been the sole reason for the crisis we find ourselves in this country, both socially, politically, economically, and in policing. And yet, the more the crisis deepens, the more the ANC seeks to centralize. But our people aren't stupid, Chairperson. They fully understand all the ANC government has managed to do successfully is centralized failure. And our people will demonstrate their opinion on this failure in no uncertain terms in the upcoming local government election. But it seems they didn't even register candidates. They're a huge failure. As the DA, we have the answer to the dysfunctionality of SAPS. We demand greater provincial policing powers and responsibilities as set out in the Constitution. It is in the Constitution. In terms of subsection D of section 1 of the Constitution, which covers the founding values of our society, colleagues, the imperative of responsiveness is placed upon government. There can be very little argument against the assertion that at present our policing policy is not responsive to the need of our society. And this is important because we quote one section 199 and we completely quote it in a very isolated, narrow frame without looking at the holistic.
As you conclude, Honourable Member,
excuse me?
As you conclude.
As I conclude, we are asking, let us get far more power in terms of localized policing. The existing police. We don't want another army. The existing police. And by the way, in this province, we have 470 neighborhood watches. And all 147 police stations have CPFs. So I don't know where the minister comes on that we don't have CPFs. Our CPFs are quite functional.
Honourable Member.
We don't allow them political.
Time has lapsed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Fritz. We are continuing. And we call on Honourable TSC Dodovu of the African National Congress to continue with the debate.
Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, Honourable Sylvia Lucas, Honourable Minister of Police, General Becky Cele, Premier of the Western Cape, and MECs from different provinces present here this afternoon, Chief Whip of the NCOP, Honorable Saiso Mohai, representatives of SALGA, permanent delegate and special delegate to the NCOP, ladies and gentlemen. The Sustainable Development Goal number 16, entitled Peace, Justice and Strong Institutions, as adopted by the United Nations in terms of its 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, calls for all countries in the world to set the targets to reduce all forms of violence, to curtail armed trafficking, and to fight organized crime. This is important because in today's complex world, security challenges have a direct impact on national security, and they threaten the sustainable development of societies. Therefore, it is critically urgent, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, that all actors in the global security architecture and within different countries must share an understanding of the security threats and work toward the same outcomes. In light of the above assertion, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, in South Africa, the questions are, why don't we, all of us, work together towards the same objectives of fighting crime and all other forms of violence? Why do we find more time for petty political bickering and squabbles in the midst of crime and violence engulfing our country, especially against women and children? Why don't we develop a common united front to confront and defeat the scourge of violence perpetuated against our people, especially against the poor and the vulnerable? The debate in this House, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, this afternoon on the devolution of the South African Police Service is showing exactly what the problems in our country are. The debate is exposing the fault lines and our inability in unison defeat crime, violence, and corruption. Honorable Deputy Chairperson, on the surface, this debate is about the devolution of the South African Police Service. It is not true. If truth is to be told, this debate is about dividing our country, maligning the Western province from the rest of the country. It is about federalism and perpetuation of the racial divisions in our country. It is about preserving the Western Cape as a fiefdom and preserve for the white supremacists. It's not surprising, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, that the Premier of the Western Cape say the citizens of the Western Cape, say the citizens of Langa, Khayelitsha, or Brandon Haven, we are all citizens of South Africa, but residents of different provinces, residents of different cities and different towns. We are one country, we are one people united in our diversities and not citizens of a particular province or a citizen of a particular city. Therefore, it is quite important to say, Deputy Chairperson, that instead of finding long-term solutions to the problems that are facing us, some political parties, especially the DA, is pandering into cheap populism and propaganda on what the systemic problems are. And in the process, they use some simple partisan political techniques to solve complex systematic problems of crime, of violence and corruption engulfing our country. The intentions of the DA, Honorable Chairperson, is characteristically to deceive, to mislead and to confuse our people. But it is also to poison and to pollute the environment by projecting a negative image of doom and gloom about our country and blame everything out crime and violence in this country for the devolution of police service. Even in this House, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, during this debate, the false picture the DA members present is that the only solution to combat crime and all forms of violence South Africa is the devolution of the South African Police Service. This, their attitude, serves the same purpose as the despicable and provocatively scandalous mischief the D and political parties continue to make about the real causes of crime in our country. As the ANC, we are not oblivious that crime today is evolving and manifesting in forms which are diverse than ever before. The truth is that terrorist and gangster activities are entering a new and very active phase. The threat of cybercrime is far from reaching its pinnacle, and globalization has shown that organized crime can generate profits and merchandise from any location as long as there is demand. Our view of the ANC, therefore, Honorable Deputy Chairman, is that the debate on the devolution of and powers of the police service must be predicated on our constitution, which seeks to create a community of policing with an emphasis on the prevention of crime and to seek the lasting solutions to public safety. We require a renewed resolve from citizens and a new thinking from the police themselves. As the police minister and honorable debate must be directed by section 199 of the Constitution as well as section 6 of our Constitution. To underline and reiterate the point they made, section 199 calls for the establishment of a single police service, and section 6 states that national legislation must provide a framework for the establishment, powers, functions, and control of municipal police service. And this is what the ANC government has done over the years. And we are proud of that particular important milestone in terms of attending to those particular issues as encapsulated in the Constitution. Not what the DA want us to do, because what they want us to do is to break the Constitution, is to undermine the Constitution, is to do what is contrary to the spirit and the letter of the Constitution. Because the only way to do what they expect us to do is to amend the Constitution. And this country is not ready to do that. We need to go all out, address all the limitations and the things within the police service, ensure that it is effective, ensure that it is professional, ensure that it combats crime and violence, which is engulfing our country. This is what we must do and not what the DA want to do, because on the surface, they say they want devolution of power of the Southern Police Service. But in reality, they want to retain the status quo of white supremacy. They want to perpetuate what is currently happening in the Western Cape. I'll make some typical example on Deputy Chairperson. Some of these areas that are involved by crime and violence in this country are in the Western Cape. And the truth of the matter is, even if in some other cities, like in Gauteng and in KwaZulu-Natal, there is crime, but you can see some improvements. What the Premier of the Western Cape must do, and his MEC must go in from the ANC government, what the ANC government in those particular areas, so that the people of Langa, the people of Kayaletu, the people of Guguletu, they must save from the perpetuation of crime that is happening. Because the truth of the matter is, the DA government is only focusing in the elite areas. It is only focusing in the white suburbs, and they spend little resources in terms of ensuring that they address those particular challenges that are faced by our people in those particular communities. This is what they must do. They must stop waffling, they must stop predicating, and they must stop deceiving our country in terms of real challenges that are facing our country in terms of crime and violence. Because for us, it will be to play to the gallery in terms of their attitude in respect of what needs to be done. To take this particular point further, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, I need to say, give back to this constitutional imperative, Section 199, as well as Section 206 of the Constitution. It is important to bear the following consideration when we attend to those particular challenges. That the available resources that our country has do not permit the use duplication of functions, what the DA government wants to do. That where policing forces are fragmented, the standards of training and other support services are need to diminish. That is what they want to do, so that they are seen to be a country within a country. That is why they call their people citizens of the Western Cape. And as I pointed out, they are not citizens of the Western Cape. They are citizens of South Africa, and they are residents of the Northwest. They are residents of the Western Cape and any other province. This is their agenda. And we are clear because we have seen this agenda that they want to perpetuate in our country. And this country, and the ANC especially, must not allow that tendency to be perpetuated, because it will take us back to the days of apartheid and imperialism, and we must avoid that. As the ANC Honorable Deputy Chairperson, we deplore and record our rejection on how some political parties, especially the DA, seek to engage on the matter of the devolution of police service. We reject how they act like the self-professed genuine mouthpiece of our people and pursue a blind, cheap popularity that has got nothing to do with the interests of our people, especially in respect of combating crime and all other forms of violence in our country. Instead, what we see them doing is to choose to pander into cheap populism and act as genuine representative of our people, as I indicated. Honorable Deputy Chairperson, this debate on the devolution of the police service has indeed blatantly exposed the DA, as I pointed out. It exposed the DA to be a party that applies double standards of selective morality. It has exposed the DA's claim that it is a proponent of the Constitution, while the truth is, it wants to undermine the Constitution because you cannot devolve the police service, as I indicated, without amending the Constitution. Our Constitution calls for a single police service, and this is what needs to be done going forward in line with the Constitution. The challenge is how to resource and strengthen the management capacity of the police service in this country. Like they are doing today in this debate, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, this political is especially the DA that I want to directly and clearly address. It continues to lay unfounded charges and manufacture hostile inventions so that they can be seen to be representing a genuinely progressive agenda and attempt to gain popularity on the basis of radical sounding but impractical proposition like the devolution of the police service. And all of this have got nothing to do with the creation of a single, professional, and community-oriented police service. We know the agenda, as I pointed out, and as we approach this coming election, this agenda will intensify, and we know about this. They need voters, as I pointed out, like predators at the smell of blood, and hope to scavenge on what they think is the carcass of the ANC. They will be defeated. The ANC with its own problems and challenges, it will rise like a phoenix and resolve all problems.
Why don't you mute her? Why don't you mute her like you do with all of us?
Indeed, the ANC, and the ANC uphold the Constitution. It upholds all the institutions.
Your time is up. Why are you not muting Dodovu like you always do with all of us?
This what we hear this afternoon about the ANC registering or not registering the candidates. That is totally off the line. It is not in line with what we are debating here. But because they want to throw every mud at the ANC, we will defeat
Stop talking, your time is up.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dodovu. Honorable members. Deputy Chairperson, why didn't you mute Dodovu like you do with all of us?
Honorable Makause,
Why didn't you mute
on the
Dodovu?
Honorable the Premier to conclude the debate? Honorable Premier Winde.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair, and thank you very much to everyone who took part in this debate. First of all, I want to say that to the ANC members, I listened to you attentively, and all of you were saying that it seems like the system at the moment of centralizing failure is working. You seem to be happy with your interpretation of Section 205 and other sections of our Constitution. The interesting thing to me is you sound like one of those tourists on the Titanic when someone knocked on your door and said, please get out of your room, get into a lifeboat, this Titanic is sinking, and you pulled out the brochure and you say, but this ship can't sink. I'll stay in my room. And so you just drowned along with that ship as it sank. We need to change our minds when things don't work. Can you tell me, I actually think you should all hang your heads in shame, actually. Because can you tell me, are you happy with the way crime is being fought in this country? Do you think our citizens are safer today than they were yesterday, the day before, last year, last term, and the term before that? Do you really think that people are getting safer, that society thinks it is getting safer, actually getting safer? Do you know that while we sit here today, just today, another 57 people in our country will be murdered, and another 116 women will be raped in our country. And those numbers don't get better tomorrow, they get worse under the ANC's interpretation of this piece of legislation, the ANC's interpretation of our great Constitution, and the ANC's interpretation of this centralizing one single police force failure that it is. We need to change this, and we need to change it. I hear these pleads that we are all one country and we are all South Africans. I absolutely agree with you. I, Alan Winde, am a very, very proud South African. But South Africans and those that are elected to this house to represent the citizens of this province. The ANC are supposed to be running this country properly, making it better. You all need to understand that we must make changes if things aren't working. The single police force, the single police service, the system that you're moving towards is failing. I'll give you an example. In this province, exactly the opposite of what's being said by many of these speakers. We really work hard to get police, to get metro police, law enforcement officers, traffic officials, neighborhood watchers, PCFs, private security to all work together. We work very hard at it, despite this centralized view of a single police service. We work very hard at it. Now, we've just gone through some major disruption and looting and disaster in our country. And what happens to that single police force that the ANC pushed for all the time? When that real hectic crime was happening and citizens were being threatened, all the police were standing back just watching it all happen. No one was jumping in to save the day. I'll give you a story in Mitchell's Plain. In Mitchell's Plain, while we were also doing exactly the same thing, mitigating risk, making sure that KZN doesn't spill over into the Western Cape, and we all did this together, all of those agencies. We worked together. I called that meeting every single morning. In Mitchell's Plain, we had SAPS, we had law enforcement, LEAP officers, Metro Police, traffic officials, neighborhood watchers, and CPF, all making sure that we were going to stay safe. Two guys decide that they want to rob a shop in the town center. And they walk in and they stole something in the shop and ran out. Of course, people thought these people were going to start looting. It was interesting to watch how about 30 officers and law enforcement and neighborhood watchers arrested these two guys immediately. Why? because the neighborhood watch guy, he was going to get in there first. The law enforcement guy was going to beat the SAPS guy. There was competition, but it was working together. And we dealt with the issue. We need to change the way we do things to make it safer in our province. And you know, I listened to the speech. Minister, you said no lighting in poor areas. I'll tell you about no lighting, Minister. In your very police station in Browns Farm, there hasn't been electricity for 2 years. What are you doing about it? Why aren't you changing that under your watch, under your control? Make that change. But NCOP, where are you in oversight asking the minister what the hell's going on? Why do these policemen and women not work a full 24 hours because they're in the dark at night? Where are you praising the single system? We should be hauling the minister in and saying, fix the lights in your own backyard. Where are those councillors who represent the very areas you're talking about that says there's no cameras? When councillors get their allocation, they put up cameras in their wards to make it safer. Those very ANC councillors, what do? They throw parties with that allocation money and they don't put up those cameras. Where are you, Mr. Bheki, Minister? Where are you? Last night I was walking with the CPF and the Neighbourhood Watch in Langa, looking at the camera system, finding out, listening on the ground, what are the issues? How can we help make it better? How's the relationship between SAPS and CPF and Neighbourhood Watches and law enforcement? How is it working on the ground? Where are you, Minister? When you come here, you don't go to Langa. You don't go to Philippi. You don't go to Khayelitsha. You go to Camps Bay and you walk on the beach. You need to get in there where the crime is. You need to deal with the crime. And Minister, I'm saying you're not able to do it. You know, I've heard about deployment today. Minister Albert Fritz spoke about deployment. If you look at the average deployment that we're supposed to be having in this country, it's about 1 officer to every 400 citizens. In those very dangerous areas of this province, where in actual fact the councillors are ANC councillors, and where the deployment of police officers is not under my control. I want it, but it is under control of the national minister and this policing system that you are all saying is fine. Do you know that in those high crime areas where those people are being murdered and where those people are being raped, it's 1 to 1,000 and sometimes even 1 to 1,200. I don't make that allocation, you do, and you don't fix it. There are more police officers at Claremont than in Khayelitsha. What is wrong with you? As this ANC-led single failure system, if you want to rave about your system, call the minister in and ask the minister why he's not fixing it. And I'm telling you now, he can't. He doesn't know how to. So that is why I am saying, give us that power. Give us that power in the provinces, not just the Western Cape, any province who wants that power. Give it to Gauteng as well. Let's show you. Let's change the way we do things, because let's start making sure that we make our citizens safer. Do you know, can you imagine if we could actually come here to this house and say, I've got model A and you've got model B, and this is how it's working differently, and why don't we share that idea, and you've got a great idea. When we were fighting COVID-19, Limpopo came up with an excellent idea of how they were getting their vaccine program running out. What did this province do? Immediately, how do we engage with Limpopo and say, thank you very much, can we work with you because you've got a good idea? Why don't we do that? No, because you spend your whole time politicking, going in the wrong direction, like the blooming Titanic, just taking this country along with you and just sinking all the way to the bottom. We need to change the way we do things in the interests of all of our citizens, in every single province, in every suburb where they live. We need to make it safer. And that means we've got to think a little bit differently. We've got to make some changes when it's not working. I want to say to you in this NCOP, you either hang your heads in shame or you start doing your job. Hold this minister to account. Make sure that we have proper numbers of police officers deployed. Fight back on the cutting of the budget. Cut other budgets. Cut the safety and security guys that look after the ministers. Cut that budget. and put the budget into offices on the ground, specifically in poor areas that really need it, because that's where the crime hotspots are. That's what our safety plan does. That's what we're doing it in a microcosm. Come and learn from that, because we use science, we use data, and that works out how we deploy. And then get the violence prevention right. Start to understand why these things happen and start to fix it. But please, make sure that you're not in that cabin that's sinking. And Madam Deputy Chair, as I conclude, what I would like to do is say thank you very much to General Patakile of the SAPS here in this province. Thank you very much to every Neighborhood Watch volunteer. Thank you very much to the LEAP officers. Thank you very much to the Metro Police. Thank you very much to the citizens of this province who are all helping to stand together. We actually only need a few more changes. And if we got those changes right from a management point of view, because that's what devolution is, it's about management. Let's get management right and make this place safer. Thank you.
Thank you. I wish to thank the Minister, the Premier, MECs, our other special delegates for those that have availed themselves to participate in this debate. We are now, honorable delegates, going to proceed to the order of the day, which is the consideration of the report of the Select Committee on Transport, Public Service and Administration, Public Works and Infrastructure. And ATC, 1st September 2021, the charter establishing the South African Development Community Aviation Safety Organization. I call on the Honorable K.M. Moimang, Kenny Busimane Khape Moimang, Chairperson of the Select Committee on Transport, Public Service and Administration, Public Works and Infrastructure to present the committee report.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Allow me to take this opportunity to also pay due recognition to the National Chairperson of the National Council of Province, Datima Sondo, the Chief Whip of the NCOP, Datima Hai, and our two House Chairs, Mengwenyali and Tatenyambi, and my honorable colleagues, both from the special and permanent delegates of the NCOP. Chair, as you have correctly pointed out, the purpose of this report is to seek endorsement of the House of the National Council of Province on the adoption of the charter establishing the South African Development Community Aviation Service Organization, SADC, or what we commonly refer to as SASO. Honorable Chair, South African Development Community Aviation Service Organization was established to enhance the safety of civil aviation within the SADC region due to lack of technical expertise and the need for technical staff to fulfill safety requirements. Now, because in terms of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, Section 231, for any international treaty to take effect, it has to be endorsed by Parliament, constituted by the two houses, both the National Assembly and the National Council of Province. In this regard, Chair, for this treaty, as I said, today's meeting is mainly to ensure that as part of the Parliament, the NCOP gets the endorsement. We are therefore putting before members of the House the fact that for SASO to be effective, it is important that their safety obligation and also oversight responsibilities is guided. Thirdly, the purpose of this charter, Deputy Chair, is to operationalize SASO, like as I said, SASO, which is South African Development Community Aviation Safety Organization. Fourthly, this charter of SASO also provides an institutional framework for the establishment of SASO. But more than that, for SASO or South African Development Community Aviation Safety Organization to take effect, 2/3 of members of SADC must be able to attach their signature thereof. But more than that, it is important to highlight the fact that 2/3 of the members of SADC did not sign the charter. The issue of operationalization could not take place. Now, among those countries that did not sign this SASO is our country, South Africa, Comoros, Madagascar, Mauritius, Seychelles, and also the United Republic of Tanzania, because some of this state belongs to other organizations in addition to them being part of SADC. So therefore, the objective of SASO is to promote safe and efficient use of the development of civil aviation within and outside SADC member states. But more than that, the focus also and the emphasis is on safety oversight obligations and responsibilities under the Convention of the International Civil Aviation signed in Chicago on 7 December 1944, and its safely related annexures and documents. In addition to that, Deputy Chair, the objective also is to promote the implementation of the industry best practices within the member state, but also to ensure that a regional system is developed to assist member states in aircraft accidents and incident investigation. Now, in terms of the process of consultation that was followed previously, the following happened. On the 24th of May 2017, SASO charter was presented to Global and Continental Affairs Committee and presented again to this committee after issues were resolved on the 28th September 2017, and therefore recommended to the committee that is called International Cooperation, Trade and Security. More than that, Deputy Chair, it was presented again to the International Cooperation, Trade and Security Cluster on the 10th of October 2017. And on the 19th of October 2017, the Development Committee referred the charter to the meeting of the 30th November 2017, wherein the charter was supported and recommended to proceed or to be referred to the DG Cluster on Justice, Crime Prevention and Security for consideration and approval. On the 6th February 2018, the charter obtained approval from the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster, and therefore was submitted to the Cabinet for approval. On the 15th August 2018, the charter was approved by the Employment and Infrastructure Development Cabinet Committee to proceed to Parliament for approval. And on the 13th of November 2018, the Portfolio Committee on Transport endorsed this charter, and it was finally adopted by the National Assembly on the 27th November 2018. And following this, there was a lull in terms of communication of referring this matter to the House and by the department. And as a result of the meeting that was held recently, an emphasis was put on the ministers of the member state to fast track the signature of the charter. And as a result thereof, the matter was tabled before the select committee, and the select committee, having received a presentation on the charter and having considered the report, formally agreed in unison to present and recommend this charter for endorsement by the House. And it is important, Chair, lastly, to make a clarion call to the honorable members of this House to vote in favor of this charter that is establishing the South African Development Community Aviation Service Safety Organization. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Moima. Honorable members, delegates, I will now put the question. And the question is that the report be adopted. But before we will proceed to the voting, I shall allow provinces the opportunity to make their declarations of vote in terms of Rule 71 if they so wish. And the declarations, maximum 3 minutes. Provinces must just indicate. Just go back to the Zoom platform. It seems as if there is no declarations. Then we go back to the question. We shall now proceed to the voting on the question. And the question is that the report be adopted. I will call upon provinces to cast their votes. And when called upon, heads of delegations must indicate whether they vote in favor, against, or abstain. Eastern Cape.
Eastern Cape, Mama.
Thank you very much. Free State. Free State.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the Council, for the report.
Thank you very much, Free State. Gauteng.
Gauteng in favor, Chairperson.
Thank you. KwaZulu Natal.
KwaZulu Natal, iyayeseka
Mama. Limpopo. Limpopo. Sheikh, you are here from Limpopo.
Limpopo supports the report, Chairperson.
It is a problem. Can we please have order here in this house? Honorable Nchameleng, can we have order? Mpumalanga. You are not on record.
Agreed.
Mpumalanga support. Thank you, Mpumalanga. You double dipped it. It's fine. Northern Cape.
Northern Cape support, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much. Northwest.
Northwest support, Honorable Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Modise. Western Cape. Thank you very much, Honorable Abskagni. Die blauw is mooi vandaag. The voting is now closed. All provinces have voted in favor, and we shall therefore declare the report adopted in accordance with Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable delegates, before we conclude the business of the day, I just want to say that all of us will acknowledge that we had a very intensive few weeks where we really did a lot of work as the NCOP, and we also successfully succeeded in actually voting on the 3 amendment bills that we proposed, because we want to make sure that there is stricter action that is being taken with regards to perpetrators of violence against women and children, and particularly also people with disabilities. That is some of the areas that we covered. We have been able to a program that NCOP took on behalf of Parliament to launch a reviewed women's charter, of which we hope we will be in the new quarter. When we are back, we will have an opportunity to have a joint debate on the women's charter. Chief Whip, we are just throwing it out there. We know that we will meet each other in the streets of this country, canvassing for our different parties. But what I want to request from all of us here, may democracy prevail. God bless, travel safe, and all the best. The House stands adjourned.
Thank you, voorzitter.
Tomorrow morning, those that have been delegated to the launching of the chapter of South African Parliament.
Thank you, fighters.